Yeah,
Modern Craftsman Monday.
it is Modern Craftsman Monday.
He does it so much slicker than us. We are with Dan from Arone Brothers, local-based company, right?
He's in-house.
Yeah,
Brought
live.
him into the studio, sitting in Nick's studio. Nick, you wore your earbuds.
And your flannel. But we had a great conversation. You gonna jump on? And we talked about development, and this is a side gig, a side piece for these guys.
I think that's probably the most interesting fact. I mean, it was a good podcast, but I think I was somewhat in awe hearing that this is not any of their full-time job.
Yeah, I was actually taken away. He said that in the beginning, and I was like, God, it's curated. I would never have caught that.
Yeah.
From day-to-day posts and even the level of detail they go into, I figured it would be a full-time gig.
Yeah, but give it a listen, see how he makes that work. We went into investing, subcontractor management, procurement, all that stuff.
And then he questions you on what are you bringing to the table for your brother?
Yeah, that's true. Not much.
No, it was a good podcast, guys. Give it a listen. Let us know what you think.
Thank you.
All right, man. So born in Waltham, Massachusetts.
That's too bad.
I know. It's a town that starts with the W, but the wrong one. It's not Wellesley or Weston. So I grew up in Waltham. Went to school at UNH, University of New Hampshire. Played football up there. Came back home, and
What'd you study?
Business administration. Yeah, majored in business. Got my bachelor's in that. So. So grew up in Waltham. My dad was a school teacher. My mother was a bartender. She grew up in Italy. She moved here when she was
on Moody Street,
21 years old. No, Lexington Street actually. The Grassfields on Lexington Street. Shout out to Grassfields. So have an older brother, John, who's not with us tonight. Was hoping he could make it, but he's
still alive. He's just not here.
He is still alive. Still is. And then a younger brother. Michael, he lives in New York right now. Got out of school, started working for a company called WB Mason right out of school, sales gig. So worked for them for a number of years right out of school, and it was a great business when we started. When I started with that business, it was a $240 million business, and then it's over a $2 billion business today. And then, the interesting thing about our business, and didn't know if you knew this or not, but, my brother and I, we have full-time jobs. So we have full-time jobs.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then we have the development company. So we do 2 to 3, high-end, we call them, spec or semi-custom homes a year. In the Newton market, we typically acquire the properties in cash, and then we go to a bank and we'll get funding for the project. And
so you acquire the property in cash, and then the construction is,
and then we get a construction loan.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for the construction loan. So now we've been doing that since about 2014. So. But been around construction my entire life. My grandfather was a carpenter. My other grandfather was a bricklayer. My uncle was a plumber. And most of my construction experience, unlike the three of you guys really on the carpentry side, most of my experience is on the site building side. So, been in equipment since I was a young age, and know how to run excavators, backhoes, bobcats, and all that stuff. So. Would spent winters working for my uncle, the plumber, and he's incredibly talented plumber. I mean, one of the best I've ever seen. Super clean, ran his own business for a long time. Technically, he's one of the best plumbers I've ever seen. Business-wise, he was the plumber that he'd get you the bill like 8 months after you finished the job. Yeah. And it's like, I didn't even remember that work that was done. And
that's a strategy, by the way.
Yeah. So, and then, my brother, John, and I, we focus on the day to day, and obviously because of our previous, commitments, we just have to be extremely organized, in what we do.
So did you guys just fall into buying properties, or what was how'd that conversation start?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So my, my father's a school teacher, but, like like my brother and I, he always had multiple jobs, owned a landscaping business.
He's got the whole summer off. I mean, seriously.
Exactly. It's a great point. And he took advantage of it, right? So he owned a landscaping business. I sold real estate. And, from an early age, it was just driven into my head that, real estate is the way to go, right? So, I know Nick lives in Southie now, but it was driven into my head at an early age that real estate's the way to go. And so after school, when all my buddies were moving to Southie and renting apartments and, blowing money on rent, my brother and I, we just saved our money and we bought our first piece of property, when I was like, 24 years old, and held on to that property for about a year, pulled equity out of that property, bought another piece of property. And then when there was enough equity in that.
So break that down, because I feel like that's the jumping off point that so many people struggle with is buying that property, yes, but then doing enough to it to then pull equity out of it that you can then have play money, per se.
Yeah. So combination of two things. One, doing a lot of the work ourselves, right? So, gutting it and doing a lot of the work ourselves.
And did you live in it?
And we lived in it.
Okay.
Yep. So buying it, getting a good deal on it, right? So it was on the same street that we grew up on. So the people that the gentleman that lived there passed away, and the daughter was the one selling the house, and she had seen us grow up on the street. She knew who we were. Oh, the Arone boys. Mm-hmm. We used to shovel this gentleman's driveway during the winters, and rake his leaves in the fall. So she kind of was proud of the fact that she was selling it to somebody that that
knew the neighborhood,
that knew the neighborhood, and that she knew, and that we were young, and it was our first home, and so, we got a relatively good deal on that because of, kind of that relationship, right? So, we bought it, we gutted it, renovated it.
What was the price tag on that?
We paid $350 for it in 2004.
Yeah.
Right. So that was before the recession. Yeah. So October of 2004.
I feel like I bought my house at the same time in Malden.
Yeah.
For like $325.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seems like that's your first buy.
Yeah.
I didn't pull that much equity out of it. I don't have any play money.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a cape, but so keep in mind the other thing, John, is that at that time, that's when you only had to put 5% down.
Exactly,
right?
First time home buyer.
Yeah, first time home buyer, only put 5% down. So gutted it, renovated it, did the entire yard over. So immediate equity.
So you're still having a full time job, you and your brother at that time.
Correct.
This is just a side hustle.
Exactly. Yep. And then so we still own that house today. We rent it out.
No way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yep. So then we bought another house, in the Bentley College area, right? Again, just Waltham is that Route 128 area. I mean, that
it's gone
that
crazy.
Market. Yeah, it's gone crazy, and there's the rental market there is super strong. So
like spell that out for people that super strong to us. I've watched it where Waltham was a probably when you first bought that first house, it wasn't the most appealing area, and now it's like what is it? I want to say Silicon Valley, but that area is more of like the scientific.
Yeah, so like so Raytheon, right?
Yeah.
Raytheon's corporate headquarters, Waltham, Massachusetts. Thermo Fisher corporate headquarters, Waltham, Massachusetts.
Autodesk used to be there.
Autodesk,
a whole bunch of them.
Wolverine Worldwide. For those of you that don't know Wolverine is the parent company of like Saucony. What's another one? Avia, Keds, whatever.
It's huge.
Yeah, so it's big, and so like for this, we have that first cape that I was talking about was 1,250 square foot cape, same size as the house I grew up in, and we get $25.50 a month rent for it.
So when you did X amount of money to that project, you poured it into it.
Yeah.
What were you guys waiting to? Like you were like, hey, let's get the bathrooms and kitchen done, and then rent it, and then pull equity out of it. What was that kind of threshold for you to know that there was enough to pull out of it?
Yeah. So I mean, I think in terms of enough to pull out of it, we didn't necessarily go into it thinking this is what we need to do to pull equity out of it. We went into it thinking like, all right, we need to live there, so this is what we're going to do first. So we did the kitchen over, we did the bathroom over, we did all the mechanicals over, finished the attic, did the entire lawn over, the landscaping over, did the siding and the windows over, and it was more about like, what do we need to do to live in it? So it wasn't necessary. We didn't necessarily go into it and say, hey, what do we need to do to be able to pull enough equity out of this house to buy our next one?
Yeah, so you're just kind of running by seat of your pants.
Exactly. Almost. Yep, absolutely, no question. At that time we were, yeah.
And then you pulled what, $100,000 out of it, or?
So the next property that we bought was $475,000, and because that one was an investment property, now we needed 20% down. So we pulled $85,000 in equity out of it and used that as a down payment on the next property.
And you stayed in the original one?
Stayed in the original one, yep. And then and continued to own the second one, rented it. And then, as you know, now we're starting to approach that 2008 period, the stock market crash. So for a while, we just, we didn't do anything, And Waltham...
So you bought it as is and just rented it?
Correct. Yep. Painted it, cleaned it. One of them we had to replace, the boiler because the heating system was shot. Replaced a water line because it was getting bad water pressure, whatever. But most of it was just, we did the roof, we did the siding over. And then that was good enough to rent out. Yeah. So then obviously you had the economy, so we didn't really do much for a while.
So your early 20s, you have 2 properties.
Early 20s, 2 properties. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So pretty good portfolio.
Yeah. And then both my brother and I bought our primary residences, in around like the 2010 period. Same thing. So him and I both rented those both renovated those properties, lived in those properties. Now, as from 2010 to 2012, 2013, the market just kept continuing to rise.
Climb, yeah.
So when we bought those houses in 2010, we were more at the bottom of the market, right? So the market didn't really start to recover until we're in this 12-year bull run.
But interest rates are still great.
Interest rates are still great. So now we bought our primary residences, renovated those. So now that we both bought those primary residences, that first house that we had bought that I told you about, now we're renting that out as well. Mm-hmm. And since then we'd refinanced. So now we're cash flow positive on that property. So this is when kind of, things really change. So we had a friend of ours, we grew up in Waltham. We talked about the type of place that Waltham is. And we had a friend that was in the trades, and didn't go to college, which is not a bad thing at all. And stayed local in Waltham and was an extremely, extremely talented carpenter. I mean, some of the finish work that this individual does and his knowledge of the business, like he went from Waltham had a vocational school at the time, which that's a whole nother, podcast in itself. I talked to the mayor about this because Waltham now ships their vocational kids off to Minuteman Tech, doesn't have a vocational program.
And Waltham used to be a really blue collar town.
It still is.
Yeah.
And so this is like my biggest issue. And I said this to the mayor because Waltham's building this brand new school. And I'm like, you need to take this opportunity to build a sick.
It will never happen.
It frustrates me to no end.
No, because if they do that, then these kids won't go to college. So then that hurts their property value and their overall value of schools on college placement. Mm-hmm. You're not going to change that. Like, trust me, when we first started the Modern Craftsman, we were like, the three of us were like, you know what, we're going to bring back shop class to every school in Massachusetts and beyond. And then like a year into that of like trying to poke away at stuff, we were like, dude, this is never going to happen.
So here's my whole theory, and this is what frustrates me the most, right? Is so Waltham's got a good hockey program, right? You do. You're a big hockey guy, and they had a good athletic program for a number of years. And so what happened was, they've really embraced, sending their kids to Minuteman Tech, which is the next town over. But here's the thing. If you go to Minuteman Tech, guess what you can't do? You can't play hockey with your buddies that you've known since you were 4 years old. Mm-hmm. So you convince your parents to let you go to the high school where really you probably would have been better off going to the vocational school. Yeah. And instead you up staying at Waltham High, sitting in classes that you have no interest in learning anything, right? Because, they're trying to herd you into this,
the funnel
of going to school when maybe you love the trades. Like, my uncle, he's an unbelievable plumber, didn't go to college, and he's done very, very well for himself, right? So it's a frustrating point, but
I don't know. I think I might have a plan for that. I think
you want to run for mayor of Waltham?
No. I think it's more than just Waltham. I think all those neighboring towns and cities, you're not going to alleviate. You're not going to take away property inside, like space inside their schools for whether it is shop, architecture, any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So you need to almost have a charter school per se that then these schools can then throw these kids that are interested in that and get exposed to it, where they can do a semester at the Modern Craftsman School, per se. I love it. That's what has to happen to kind of make this happen is you put these schools in an area that a bunch of these other schools and towns can then put, whether it's every Wednesday for a semester, you can basically fill that, and it's more of common sense college. I mean, it's common sense classes where it's like, how do you balance a checkbook? What will a credit card do for you that's positive and negative? You know, how do you build a business that's more than just carpentry or construction or whatever? They're all basically what we talk about in the podcast can be used across the gamut of management and how you perceive things and how you vocalize it. And I think having that, but also having shop classes that teach architecture and details and historic, craftsmanship, that's missing. So that's something that we've been trying to chase down forever. And we're getting closer. Yeah. This is something I chase like on weekends when I have spare time. But yeah, there's an area in Newton that I'm kind of picking away at, even though Northland owns the property. There's an old historic building that's prime.
Love it
for a spot. So
do it.
Hey, we've got the right people behind us now. We might be able to buy the building, have a design center, and have not a Voc school, but a little charter school that people could go to.
And I mean, not some of my best subs are the ones that went through the vocational program. I mean, they're, my site guy, my HVAC guy. I mean, their work is just top notch. They're so reliable.
But I think the numbers are against us. There's not enough spots in Voc schools because Voc is more than just, carpentry, plumbing, heating, all that stuff. It's like knitting. It's a lot more. Like it's also nursing. It's a whole bunch of stuff that. Yeah. And there's a waiting list in Massachusetts.
Anestheticians, hair, nails, all that stuff, skin.
There's a huge waiting list, and then there is a stigma.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's something that something that aggravates you, but also it's what put us out here on the podcast. That.
And the ironic thing about all this is that my grandfather was actually the woodshop teacher at Cambridge Ridge and Latin High School. Yeah. So he had Patrick Ewing in class.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
Just think of that. Patrick Ewing was almost a carpenter, maybe.
It's funny. My son came home this past week, my 12-year-old, and he's like, hey, I took this test in school. My wife started like flipping out. Like, they have tests for, what you're going to be? Because her test that she took in junior high told her to be a secretary. Yeah. So I didn't realize secretary is a trigger word for my wife. So if you see her. But no, he got his test results back for that test. And it came back as architecture and builder was number 1.
Wow.
2 was marketing, and 3 was investments.
Nice.
Like finance.
Nice.
And he's like, yeah, I want to be like, he walks around as snobby about architecture as I am.
Hedge fund. Have him going to hedge funds.
No, man. Dude, I would so have him go right into architecture and then be a builder. I think that would fit him so well.
Yeah.
And then have someone else that kind of spurs on what maybe I've started in my vintage builders years.
Yeah.
But it's funny. He walks around and goes, "What is that crap?" And I have to walk around. I have to look around real quick and be like, "What kind of architecture am I looking at?" Or is he just saying that because I would say that in this area? So he's funny that way.
So I got down the path of the vocational school so we're right around the time of the recession, right? And the first time we really got into like some of the projects that we're doing today, the gentleman that I was referring to, extremely talented, he just got crushed by the economy, right? So the 2009 crash got crushed, and along with losing a lot of money, he lost his way, so to speak, as well, right? So went down the path of drugs, alcohol, whatnot, and so he calls me up one day and he's like, listen, I got this incredible project, I got this incredible opportunity in Lexington, and he's like, but I got no money.
Yeah.
So I look at this project and I'm like, oh my God, this would be an amazing project.
Like what was it? Break it down.
So it was a old, it was a 50s, oversized 50s Cape with a 2-car garage, and it was on, I think it was on like 1.4 acres of land, and I'm like, okay, listen, person to not be named, I love you, but why did this realtor bring it?
I love how we're protecting this guy's identity.
Like, why did the realtor bring it to you, right? And so, sure enough, it was on a dead-end cul-de-sac. And you know how this goes, right? Some builders tend to complicate things, and like, well, if you knock this road down because it's a private way, you're responsible for paving 80 feet of road, and then we might have to replace all the catch basins. That project's a nightmare. We're staying away from that. Yeah. And this is how smart this dude is. He's like, listen, man. He's like, but if you really read the rule book, if you don't renovate more than 50% of the house, you don't have to pave the road.
Stay within.
Dude, we left up like 2 walls, man, right? We stayed within the guidelines.
There's certain towns that have that rule where like you keep a couple walls, even one wall.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
You're like grandfathered in.
And so I said to this person, I said, listen, we're going to do this, but So the way that we broke it down was it was 60-40, right? So he had his GC license at the time. My brother and I, we did not have our GC license. So we're like, listen, it's 60-40, but because he had no money, he had to get paid every week, right? So I agreed to pay him $1,500 a week. And the $1,500 a week I paid him would come out of his split at the end of the project.
And which way was it leaning?
It was 60-40 for us.
Okay.
We're putting up, the cash. And,
You're the ones at risk.
Everything was at risk for us. But he brought us the project, and we didn't have our GC license, right? So this was the first project that we did.
But you could have bought it as a homeowner.
Yeah.
And could have pulled the permit.
Yes, we could have done that.
I'm trying to weasel that guy out of the deal, but
at the same time, this was a big project, and we ended up selling the house for $2.3 million. So it was a big project.
What'd you buy it for? Like
$7.25.
Okay,
yeah,
for less than that's good. And you left it standing, or did you knock it?
No, we had to leave it standing. We added on,
kept the foundation.
Kept the original foundation. Added like a 16 by 40 foundation off the back, built up above the two.
He's doing what the foreigners do now. That's what they do in Wellesley. I'm not going to say, but like there's certain nationalities that keep the walls up on the first floor and they rebuild everything. And it's like, what are we doing? And they did that next to us on our Maurice project.
Yeah.
They started at the same time as Ivy.
Yeah.
Took the whole thing down to the foundation, left the foundation, added onto it, and it's an absolute eyesore. They rebuilt the whole thing, still can't sell it.
Wow.
That's been a year.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's if you do it the right way with the right architecture.
Yeah.
But either way, go ahead.
Yeah. So and it was also the caveat. I said to him, I said, listen, we're going to do this project. I said, but I just want to let you know, there's probably a 90% chance that we might not be friends by the end of this, because between my brother and I, like you're gonna think you're surrounded, because we knew what tendencies he had and what shortcomings he had around alcohol and drugs and whatnot. And he was strong, very strong for 80% of the project. But again, my brother and I, we really were the ones that kind of got this thing to the finish line, and we were like, wow, like we can do this. We can absolutely do this. And we put it on the market, and it was gone within 2 to 3 weeks. And
so what made it fly off? Just because the market was hot, or?
So I think that
what you did to it.
It's what we did to it. I mean, I think that the reason why I say that we're semi-custom and not spec, and I listen to your podcast all the time, and I'm always just kind of laughing to myself, because I think even last week's podcast, Nick was talking about how they went into Southie and they looked at a project and they're like, oh my God, this is dog crap. So as soon as we agreed to do this, I immediately started going to 6, 7, 8 open houses a week in that Lexington, Newton
see what
market.
The market is.
And I'm like, dude, what? This is dog crap. This is dog crap. This is terrible. You look at what everyone's doing, and we just felt like we were always, a step above the rest in terms of, our tile selection, in terms of our trim packages, in terms of what we do around just around the heating and the HVAC and whatnot. Everyone seems to be doing the warm air furnaces. Where we do hydro air in all our projects, and we do runtles, the sleek runtles in the basement, because they look awesome. You look at our mechanical rooms. I mean, we diamond plate the walls in our mechanical rooms, and we do really high end tile. We don't cut any corners whatsoever. And
so how do you make profit?
So for example, the last project that we did, it was one of the highest per square foot dollars per square foot in that Newton market. I think we got close to $500 per square foot. So we just have a strong belief in what we do, that it's that much of a differentiator.
So how'd you learn what to put into the houses?
Everyone asks that question, and for me, I mean, I don't feel like I felt like it was going to a lot of open houses, and a lot of it I feel is what would I want in my own house? What's the trim package I would want in my house? What would I want for, an insulation package? How energy efficient do I want the house to be? And we just feel like, we feel like we put into that house what we would expect if it was our own. And it's it's worked for us. Like for example, like the same thing, like basic things like the window wells. You see some people put those like plastic round faux rock window wells in their egress window basements, and we're like, dude, we would like never do that.
But I mean, the hardest thing is like someone's got to start somewhere. Like it's if you take like we don't even do hydro in a lot of our entry level specs because it's just price point. The market itself, it is tough. We do a lot of stuff that's high end to the general public, but like hydro, that's a $15,000-$25,000 upgrade.
Absolutely. And my plumber's like, why do you don't need to do this? And that's kind of where we rely on our realtor a little bit for
but I think when you're doing that, how do you know where to pull it from? Like at least, I mean, I'm not saying you're uneducated. I think you definitely have educated yourself in the market, but like even for me, I can't pull out 25 grand from everywhere else I'm going with. Like I literally, one of my realtors dropped off she may have forgotten that she did it, but she left someone else's package at one of my jobs, like the whole what they have for allowances, what their specs are, and I was like, I'll just take this. And I just threw it in my truck, and it was like reading a book where you get it and you're like, I can't put this down. I drove to the next job, opened it up, and I was like, $50,000 for cabinetry. I'm doing 90, and I'm like full overlay doors. I'm like, all right, so I could compensate to meet the market. I could put overlay doors in all my cabinetry, and I'm like, but I can't do that.
Yeah, we do inlay.
Yeah, inset. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like, how do I don't know where to find. I guess my question is, I don't know how to find 15K to put into hydro, where right now we do 5 zones, forced hard air, nest. I just how did you know it? Did you make money on the first, like big time? Yeah.
So it's funny. We've actually I feel like the more that we learn, we actually tend to make less.
Oh, okay.
Because we're doing, like, we look back at some of our earlier builds and we're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we did a one piece in the, like, our mind was, oh, that's the basement bathroom. Like, we can get away with the one piece. Now we look back and we're like, dude, we would never do a one piece now, like, so we, and so like, we never used to insulate our slabs. Now we insulate our slabs. We just felt like that's.
But the market's like, you guys talked about it with Spencer. That's like, no one's going to know.
Trust. Yeah.
So how do you, especially in a spec, how do you, like, we do specs and we do custom. So I get it in the custom end all day. Yeah. But it's when it comes down to like the spec market, no one's going to ever, especially know it's like people say what's in the walls or what's under the slab. So,
my brother and I, we go back and forth about that a lot. And that's probably one of the things that, one of the few things we argue about. Like, we never argue about like work ethic or money or anything like that. We argue about like, what are the things that the buyer is going to notice and what are the things that, they're not going to notice. Mm-hmm. Like, do we need to do a cobblestone apron at the entryway and right before the garage doors? Or can we get away with doing a cobblestone entryway just at the,
or just straight asphalt,
or just not do one at all, right? Like, so those are the things that we talk about. But the other thing too is like a lot of these buyers now with social media and everything else, like I feel like they are more educated. Like, we do get people asking us like, oh, is this forced hot? Is this warm air furnaces, or is this is this hydro?
But don't you feel like not even just educate themselves, most of the market will then drive around and see every single product at that price point. Mm-hmm. So if you're sitting at the 2.2 market and they're not just going to walk your house, like when I looked at a house, I would look at like 1 or 2 houses, like you drive by them. Yeah. When it comes to this open house market, they're driving and they're going into every one of the houses.
Yeah.
So they get to see what's going on. Go ahead.
Are most of your jobs selling above the comps in your area though?
Way above. So for example, the house that we did on Windermere Road, there was a bigger house on a bigger lot directly across the street that went for like 2.2. We were across the street, smaller house, smaller lot, and it went for 2.7. So we got like 500 a square foot, and I could look it up and tell you what the other one.
What do you think? What do you think his cost to square foot to build was compared to yours?
So maybe he was around like like $180. If maybe we were around 220 or something like that.
So the profit, that's the tricky part, Tyler. Is I bet you the profit was the same.
It probably
that's the suck part.
So it does and it doesn't suck, John. The reason why it doesn't suck is
he gets to use your comp. He gets to use your comp to make more money.
So, but the project I'm doing around the corner, and it's interesting. My brother actually brought this up. Like one of the things he was excited about this last house we sold. He's like, dude, that's our comp for 51 Hawthorne, which is the project we're working on now. Because
you created your own comp.
We created our own comp because we're in this pocket, this neighborhood, right? So, you know, and the other thing too is like we've built. You know, we're starting to build this brand now where exactly where now it's like we put that sign up and
people want it
and people want it, right?
They don't question it.
Yeah, because we have full-time jobs. Like, listen, we've done customs and I'm not opposed to doing them, but because we have full-time jobs, we don't necessarily have the time.
So where's the break-even point where you give up the day job and start chasing the fun stuff?
Oh, that's a great point, man. You know, I don't know if it's necessarily a break-even point as much as it's like where I am in my life.
Well, it's a comfort thing, no?
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I mean by break-even is when are you comfortable with pulling the trigger on doing customs? Because that market, the 220 that you're building at, similar to me.
Yeah.
You're probably building in the custom range, $350,000 to $400,000.
Yeah.
$400 a square foot.
Yeah.
At the same quality you're doing now, but just when you get to custom, so it could benefit itself to you leaving the day job, but it's a comfort thing.
So, and you know, you may disagree. I'd be curious to hear. You know, part of what I love, part of what my brothers and I love about what we're doing is we don't have a boss, right? We build these houses. We put into these houses what we want to put in. We do what we love doing, and then we put it on the market. Hey, you want to buy this house? Great. Hey, you don't want to buy it? Great. Yeah. If I get into custom, it's like, now I have a boss again, man. Like, what?
You're saying the client.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so, and I get it. Like, I mean, you know, I think that there's people that are probably, you know, they love doing that and they're great. And I'm not saying, like the customer we've done, I've loved it. We've been fortunate. We've had great buyers, super easy to work with, young families, but that's also part of why we decided to do it. Like so one of the projects we did, one of the buyers got bid out on one of our projects. It was spec home. It was listed at 2.7 and it ended up going for 2.9.
Wow. In Newton, huh?
In Newton. And
so in Wellesley this would be like 3.2.
Yeah. Yep.
3.5, which is crazy that one zip code away.
Yeah.
All the same square footage, all the same finishes.
Newton is like higher ed and academia, and then Wellesley is like hedge fund, private equity. You know,
I did a lot in Newton myself. I think my last one was on Evelyn Road in Newton. I did, and then the one before that was Newtonville Ave.
Yeah.
That was my jam.
Yeah. So we then bought another lot. And our realtor was actually the one that suggested, like, hey, why don't you reach out to that family that missed out on your previous project?
Absolutely.
And we did, and they were like, don't call anybody else.
So how are you finding these lots now, today?
So, you know, now that like our name is out there, we get calls, you know, nonstop.
So you're on the overall bid list where I say that meaning I've gotten calls and thought I was special.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, you know, we can buy this direct. And then I find out that every single builder in town that develops is on that same list.
Oh, dude, yeah. I know I'm not special. I'm like, okay, was I call number one or was I call 400. Like 38, right? Like which call was I? Yeah. But like, so for example, the historic reno that we're doing right now that I've posted on about AG. So we did this project. We bought a historic home. And then and we renovated the historic home, and then it had a spare lot behind it, so we built that lot behind it.
Oh, you subdivided it.
Yeah, so we subdivided it.
It's a win-win no matter what.
It was great. And so we like changed the neighborhood. Like people would come up to us on a daily basis because so this is another project that so that one was actually on MLS, and my brother found, he's like, dude, we got to go check out this property. And there was like a paper road that ran through this property. Like, so a paper road is a road that exists on a map, but it technically hasn't been developed by the city. No water, no sewer, you know, no curbing, no asphalt. And so again, you know, I think more experienced developers probably like, oh, dude, you know, paper road, city's going to get involved, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, let's just buy it.
It's almost being naive is working for you.
Yes. And I know that. Trust me.
Until it isn't.
Until it isn't,
yeah. Right? So, but now, you know, we're a little bit more wary, right? So we'd walk away from, you know, not walk away, but we'd ask more questions, right? So we bought this, changed the neighborhood, right? And the house across the next door, there was like the woman, her name was Helen. She was literally like no lie, I'm not saying 100 because she was old. She was like 101 years old. And her son used to come down from Maine on the weekends to visit his mom. And he would see this work that we were doing on these houses. And he said, listen, he's like, you guys are great. I love the work that you do. He's like, I mean, I hope mom lives to 200, but when she passes, like, I want to sell you my mom's house. I want you to renovate it. So he literally called us up one day, and you know, she unfortunately had passed, and he said, listen, mom's passed, and I'd like for you guys to buy mom's house. He's like, but you just got to promise me you're not going to knock it down. So literally handshake at like some, you know, breakfast spot in Newburyport, Massachusetts, because they were in Maine. We were in Boston. We met them halfway, shook hands, agreed on a price. And that's like, you know, that's how we got that one.
Wow.
So
that's a great story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That speaks to your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and, you know, he's a great guy. And, you know, there was like it was like this old flathead engine in like the shed. He's like, can you save that for me? I'm going to pick it up someday. Like, we got it saved out in a pallet behind the house. Like, hey, when are you going to come and pick this thing up, man? Like, I think my lull almost drove over it, you know? So, but, you know, we find a lot that way. And then, you know, and we go to these historic meetings. People show up in these historic meetings. And
so people ask me how I have time in the day. You got a full-time gig.
Yeah, dude.
When do you have time? So how often are you hitting sites?
So, you know, between me and my brother and I, you know, we have to tag team them, right? I drive my subs crazy. You know, like I have one of my subs that's like, Dan, it's Saturday at 5.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, give me some space,
Give me
man.
some room.
So like, you know, like this Saturday, like, you know, I'm meeting my HVAC guy. I'm meeting my, you know, my plumber.
So you're like a typical client where all week you're not really available, and then the weekends you're now free when we're all trying to get some shut eye.
Yeah, I mean, but like, you know, so I mean, I'm at the gym early, right? And then if I'm not traveling for work, or my, you know, or if my brother's not working, you know, like one of us will make sure we're at the site.
Do you
day.
hit it during the day?
No, not during the day. I'm there either like early in the morning, or I'm there at the end of the day. And then, you know, my brother with his line of work, depending on his shift. If he's not, you know, working that day, or if his shift is later in the day, he can be there, you know, for a good period of the day, depending on when his, you know, when his shift is. But it's a tremendous amount of planning.
Like, how'd you find these subs that you can trust your investment into?
It helps growing up in a blue collar city like Waltham. You know, some of these guys are people I grew up with, went to high school with.
Yeah.
And you know, like, you know, my site guy is, you know, we've learned, you know, I also pick subs that I can learn from. Like, I might pay a little bit more, but like my site guy, he's one of the best in the business, and I've learned a lot from him. Like, he might call me up and he'd be like, dude, the surveyor doesn't know what he's doing. Your garage is a foot too low. You need to raise it. You know what I mean? So instead of just, you know, hey, showing up and digging the footings to, you know, 111, you know, he's the one that's like, dude, you need to raise this grade by a foot. He's like,
you almost need to have to if you're not going to be there.
Yeah.
Like Benny and I talk about all the time is that when we have these semi-customs, that you have to shake the best quality out of the guys that you have. And unless you can pay a little bit more for a great sub that you can then have your eyes and ears, they become your eyes and ears.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's certain aspects of the project that, you know, we know, okay, like I might have to take a couple of days off this particular day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
when does that usually happen? When are you worried the most?
You know, window and door install, you know, make sure that guys are, you know, doing the right things, flashing it, putting them in the right way. You know, when I'm going to skip all over the map here, but, you know, exterior trim, like, so my brother he's a lot like you, like in the sense that, like, he can sketch out, like, he's an incredible artist. He could sit here and like draw you standing here today. Mm-hmm. Same thing with my younger brother. It's funny, like my old
skipped a generation.
It does skip a generation, and so then my father can't draw, my grandfather can draw. It literally skips.
That's funny.
A generation. So like with the exterior trim, like he's great about figuring out like, all right, this is where this needs to tie into this. Okay, we're doing like an arched copper overhang, and you know.
See, I figured you guys would lean more on the drawings since you're not always there. Like, I've talked to other developers that want to get into this and they're having trouble with their GC or whatever, and I tell them to lean on drawings more because that's your contract.
Yeah.
That way, if you're not able to be there more,
yeah,
there's something that you can relate to. Meaning, hey, you can be on the phone at work still and go, hey, pull up page 23. Look at the top right.
Yep.
You know, it's funny that you guys are still doing it on your own.
So, and part of this is the reason why we reached out to Matt is that, again, not an exaggeration. Like our architect is 85 years old. He's
hand drawing stuff.
He's 85 years old, man. And, you know, we're bringing a lot of stuff to him. You know, we're driving through Cambridge or we're driving through, you know, Chestnut Hill, a lot of these nice towns.
Grabbing pictures it's so funny to use Boston Design Guide as an example. Because I use that for my entire career. I think I said this forever ago. It's probably 14 years now. I shut down my company and started working for somebody else. But before I did that, I went to Boston Design Guide and I took every GC out of that, every architect, and I called every one of them.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think it's the who's who of like the higher end. It's a great little kind of reference book for all that.
I literally I have, you know, the past 8 years stacked up on my I
think I got you beat. Like 14.
Yeah. And like at night, I'll go through the same one and I'll literally just thumb through the pages of it and just look at it. And even though I've looked at it before, I'll look at it again.
It's almost like the old Sears catalog when I was little.
Yeah.
You go through it and you're like, I want that. I want this. And then the funny thing is, as I got older, I looked back at issues and I would see the same, like MERS. MERS would continue to put the same modern house in for like the last 5 years. Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, this is how I learned about marketing. I'd be like, all right, so this is what I got to do. Like this, you put the best of the best, and that's who you want to kind of tailor your work towards.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't looking for traditional people.
Yeah.
For the last, I don't know how many years now, he's gone straight kind of modern. And I was like, so there's a huge market for modern.
Yeah.
So I would look at these magazines as differently as I went from carpenter to manager to owner.
Yeah.
To see how it works. And it's funny that it's all the best of the best.
What did you want the most out of the Sears catalog?
I don't know. There's always toys and like.
There was like an electric guitar I wanted so bad. So sick.
Are you and your brother 50-50 in the business?
So it's actually 40-40-20 because the younger brother has a 20% stake in it as well. Yeah. Actually, I think it's technically.
What's he do?
He's a silent investor, so he's
just straight money.
Straight money, and
makes it rain.
And I love it. I know he's going to listen to it at some point. It's not like we necessarily need it, but it's fun, right? It's like we're in it together, you know.
That's cool.
And
it's a family biz.
Yeah, it's cool, you know. And that's, you know, it helps for like during stressful periods, right? So like this project that we're doing now, it's, you know, this thing's going to hit in the market for, you know, we think we're going to be in like the mid to high threes, right?
Wow, that's aggressive.
It's like, you know, you see all the stuff with the coronavirus, right? And you know,
the Q4,
the market's tanking. Now it came back today, obviously.
Yeah, but like I was talking to some investors and some money guys, and they're saying Q4, anything that's like silicone based, any of that stuff for like window glazing, it's gonna then hit all the suppliers where they're burning through inventory right now. Mm-hmm. That then will get hit
on
Q4 on all these things.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like that lag.
I'm telling you, so it's scary, right? Especially for, to be, we always felt like we were like right above where the market was, right? So, and Tyler, I feel bad we're talking about all this like Boston market centric stuff. I apologize, man.
No, it's fine.
Does this happen all the time, or?
Usually those two kind of get into a little romantic love affair about Boston, but.
So, a few years ago, it felt like all the spec homes were at like that 1.8 range, right? So when everyone else was at like 1.8, we were at like 2.2, right? And then like 2.2 became like the new 1.8, right? And when everyone else was at 2.2, we were at like 2.5. And now
everyone used to be buying at like 500,000, and they're buying at $1 million now. Right? It's kind of not like the numbers. People can say what you want. I'm still amazed by what we buy a lot for that we knock down.
Yeah,
it's bonkers when you relate it to your own cash flow and your own numbers.
Yeah.
Every time I walk into a house, I'm like, I could live in this, but we're gonna knock it down tomorrow. Like it's kind of cuckoo.
So now 2.5 is the new 2.2. So like that house that we did on Windermere, we sold it for 2.7. We probably got, no exaggeration, I think we got 7 offers at 2.5 that we rejected. But we, to your earlier question, like, okay, Dan, you did the diamond plate mechanic rooms, you did hydro air, you did the cobblestone entryway. Like, we were like,
But where'd that come from?
we were like,
what
dude,
did you steal from in the budget?
we didn't steal from anything. When everyone was offering 2.5 and we could have made money at 2.5, we were like, no, man, in order to make the percentage we want, like
my mind scrambles right now. So you're doing beat it inside cabinets. Is
Yep.
it box store or is it custom from like a?
no,
local?
it's custom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Custom.
And then like floors, 3.5, 4.
3.5. We did, what was the build you did? One of your first herringbone entryway floors. I should know it.
No, I that's weird. I lose track of all of them.
You want the cool railing and all that stuff.
That was probably back at Richland Custom.
After that,
Ivy.
Yeah. So, we did the herringbone entryway, right? We did. So this is another thing that we did. We did the hone tile and the master bath. Like, we could have just done regular polished marble.
What's your allowance for tile?
For like the whole project?
Materials.
Oh, dude, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mind races with numbers. I walk through houses and I'm like, that's 17 grand.
Yeah.
That's 5. That hardware, 3,200.
Yeah.
Like, it's freaky how I could walk through a house and just. I'm all numbers. Appliances, you 28,000.
Yeah, I think probably closer to 30, right? So we're doing 48 inch Wolf.
Yeah.
We do
42 inch.
and then we do so on this house we did a 48 inch sub. We didn't do the 42.
Jeez, like what?
Yeah, and then okay, so I love this. So we get into like stupid stuff like, dude, do I need to do the integrated water dispenser or should I just do no water? That's an extra $1,200.
We've been doing the no water dispenser, but we doing the filtration underneath the sink.
Okay.
So that tap, instead of having like another hole drilled in your slab,
yeah,
we've been doing the filter right underneath the sink, and then it does the kitchen sink so you can drink out of it.
Yeah, because as a spec builder, you're literally.
But that's an ad.
It's an ad.
Like, I could offer everyone. Like, we just met with a new investor that's doing work with us, and he's like, let's design this with a pool house. And I'm like, no, you do a floor plan with that, and then you offer it as an option, but you're not accountable for it.
We do that with like the garage, right? So we'll pre-pipe, pre-plumb for like a heated garage, but we don't actually provide the unit,
You finishing basements?
All of them finished. In Newton, you have to, man.
How's he making money?
In Newton, you have to.
Can someone tell me this? What am I actually? You know what? What am I doing wrong? Let me look at myself and just go.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is they're the investors.
So that's a great point. Like, who's running the day to day for you?
In terms of like the bill
GC.
So it's both me and we both have our GC license.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we both have our GC
I would feel.
license.
How do you sleep at night?
I don't.
They're not relying on outside investors either.
No.
Yeah, true, but they're also not relying. They're not paying a GC to run the day to day. So they're not. It's literally.
In super consistency in our subs, right? Like, so my Finnish guy, like, he knows, like, all right, man, I'm running into this situation that I better call John or Dan, and I'll go. And don't get me wrong, like, there has been times where, us not being there has definitely,
hindered production.
Either hindered production or like, came back to bite us. Like, there's been times where, if I was there, so I'll give you an example. My brother John will get a kick out of this one. So the foundation guy's there, right? And like I said, I'm organized. I'm all over my stuff. I got everything kind of like mapped out for him. And when I the notes that I left him, the rough. So we have this big, huge, massive like quad slider in the basement, and then we have a huge, massive slider on the first floor as well to go to the backyard. So the rough opening that I gave him for the foundation was the rough opening for the slightly smaller quad slider on the first floor. I
feel better about myself.
Hey, ProCut, do you have any availability this afternoon?
$850,
$900 minimum, right?
Yep.
My brother's like, "What's this slab of concrete in the backyard?" I'm like, "I had to call ProCut."
That happens. I'm surprised. Like, most of the investors that we deal with, they hire a GC.
Yeah.
And there's different guys that do it where, let's say the smaller guys that, it's funny. I say small. They just do a different level of a spec home.
Yeah.
But they definitely leverage like my market of a spec.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to get 2.7, they'll get 2.6, but they'll be more profitable than me because they're just leveraging themselves in the market.
Yep.
And I think they have it done where there's one kid that's a GC. He gets paid $40,000 each project.
Yeah.
He may run 7 to 8 of them, across the year.
Yeah.
Their builds are probably let's say 80 days, something like that, like really tight.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, compared to 10 months for me. But there's a whole different thing where I have to build at a certain rate, and then, you know, what I have to put into the house is what's left over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our fastest build was, you know, we did a 5,500 square foot home in 7.5 months.
That's good.
It's too good, actually.
It's really good.
Right. It's so.
That was like you started in spring.
We started that one in March 1st, and we finished like
so
second
winter,
week of October.
That's when people can really hit it perfect.
Yeah.
Because you're coming out of winter.
Yep.
And you're just cruising.
And you know, we like weather
rain
was pretty good. You know, it was you know, it was that portion of the winter, like it was a little bit more milder. You know, so but and again, it's not like, you know, I don't want to like label us as like an investor per se. Like, you know, to me, I feel like we grew up, you know, doing this. You know, like we grew up, you know, working construction. I grew up, you know, working with my uncle, working with my father, working with my, you know, my grandfather. You know, like remember those old like Dunkin' Donuts commercials, like when the snowflake before it hit the ground, the plow truck drivers like were racing to hit the snowflake, right? Like, so that was me in like high school and college, right? Like I got like my wisdom teeth out, and I was like, there was a major snowstorm, and it's like I couldn't wait to get in.
Go make some money.
Yeah. Like that's how we grew up, you know.
I had my hockey team call me Boomer this past weekend. Like Boomer. Like that's what they call like the what's that?
It's an insult.
Yeah. Puff. Basically, baby boomers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, okay, Boomer, and I was like, how do I slap all these kids?
Yeah, the millennials.
Like, yeah.
The millennials, right?
But no, you're right. It's how do you push and keep pushing forward?
Yeah.
So what stresses you out though? Like if you're not, I mean, I can see how it can be stressful.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be had by the guys on the site every day.
Yep.
And honestly, that's what I worry about when I talk with Benny and my guys. Like, you don't want the subs to run the job.
Yep.
But you have to.
Yeah.
So what stresses you out mostly?
You know, mostly process, right? Like I'm always wondering if we can be, if we can be more efficient, right? Are we letting the trim acclimate, enough? Are we letting the floors acclimate enough? Is if I was able to be there more, is there any way that this thing we could have made it run, more efficient? I think that, my brother and I, we spend a lot of time going back and forth again on like, what is the stuff that a buyer is going to notice versus like the stuff that, that they don't notice. Like the last project that we did we need to do that $10,000 pergola? Like if they really truly loved this house, are they?
You could have given them the option.
Yeah, like are they not going to buy it? Because of a pergola. So, like at the end of the day, to Tyler's point, we're the investor, right? So if this thing sits, like it's every month it sits, there's those carrying costs, add
But you
up.
got in the market at such the right spot.
That has certainly
like
helped.
You've never seen a
And that's the other thing about the jump off point. It's like, this business can be, so cyclical, and no matter how successful you are as, a builder or spec builder, whatever, if the market tanks, like you can be the best spec builder out there. You're probably going to go to building houses for somebody else at that point if the market's in the toilet.
Thing. So what are you worried about now with the market? What are you seeing?
I mean, right now it's like, the thing is here's my thought process on the market, at least in the Northeast, right, is that it's not like we're not building on virgin land, right? Like a lot of what you see around here is like stuff's old, man.
Yeah.
Like it's just old. So I don't feel like it's expanding too quickly in this area. I feel like, hey, listen, like that's a really old home that no matter what you do, like you're just going to need to replace.
You'd pour $1 million into a house that's existing just to have still things that are compromised to the homeowner. Yeah,
like, it's like I saw some of the, couple of random comments, flack you took on one of the houses you knocked down.
I take crap all the time.
It's like, it's like, okay, buddy, like let's go dump $1 million into a home and still have 6-foot basements in the ceilings.
Or even the first floor is 7'2".
Yeah, it's like.
And it's cut off. It's funny, I did a video and I haven't posted it because I didn't use Puff to edit it. And I did it myself, and I'm like, I don't want to put this out there, but I walked through our Cliff Estate build before I knocked it down because everyone gave me crap about that build. They're like, why wouldn't you just leave it? Yeah. So I walked through room by room and toured it and been like, this is why you would knock this down. I just haven't been, I haven't had the guts to push it out there.
Yeah, exactly. So
Because it's like the master bath, literally, the master shower, I stood in it, and I could rock back and forth. I had an inch in the shower from wall to wall. It was just like, this is not a master. And for me to make it right and to have the right lighting, just the windows we put into houses now, I don't know about you, but I track all my numbers. And like from when we started doing specs before vintage, we would spend like $22,000 to $27,000 on windows. Mm-hmm. Now we're in like the $40,000 range at minimum.
Dude,
right?
So after you go through the Newton Historic Commission, it jumps, because then they make you do, they're making you do architecture series where like you might be doing like the Pro Line series or whatever with, with Pella. It crushes you, man. It crushes you. But so here's the thing,
Elevate
like you said,
from Marvin.
Yeah, sorry, man. It's just I've been a Pella guy. I don't know why. I don't have anything against Marvin. Yeah.
How'd you fall into that love affair?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I know how we did.
Some rep took you to a golf tournament. No, and that's where it was.
No. I think the my brother, when he renovated his house in Newton, he did all Pella, and it was like, wow, they were just did a great job. So
that's funny, because it's usually, I find that like the realtors know what's going on.
Yeah.
And if they don't recognize the sticker, they won't push it as much.
Mm-hmm.
So like Marvin's for me were tougher to push than it was for like a Pella or an Anderson.
Really?
Anderson 400's like, it's like Harvey out here.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the name, everyone knows what it is, but when you put back in the day, the Integrities with the red sticker, people are like, what is that?
Yeah.
So we'd have to educate the realtors on what they were trying to sell.
Wow.
So it's nuts. But yeah, Pella, I feel like windows in general, that's where if I had to save $15,000 instead of doing hydro, I ended up pouring it into windows.
Yeah. That's
just over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think that to your point, some of the reason why we're able to do what we do is that we get pretty good deals on the land acquisition as well, just because the whole historic thing, man, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of manpower that we put in, behind the scenes, nights, weekends, because, could we knock it down? Yes, but there's like a 18-month demo delay in this area.
Newton was one of the first towns to put that demo delay in, meaning you can still knock it down after you wait a year or longer.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally they want you to kind of somehow salvage that architecture.
Yeah. Or so the other thing we'll do is like, hey, listen, like this is a historic property. Like we're going to have to go in front of historic. It's a long process. Like, are you willing to, hold paper on this deal until we have permits in hand? So that in itself alleviates, several $1,000s.
You make the homeowner hold on to it.
Yep.
So I remember back when...
Yes, onto the paper. So the property goes to our name.
Yeah.
And then they're holding paper, and they'll say, all right, we'll hold paper on this land acquisition for like 4 months at 0%.
Okay.
And then
So you'd almost be paying rent back to them.
Well, it's 0% financing,
0%,
so we're not paying anything.
Yeah. So ideally, yeah. So I mean, I've seen people that if you have a lot, they will sell that. They've already applied for the demo permit.
Yeah.
In Newton, because that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That's key. If you can get, so I mean, that's what we do with some other clients where you can get them involved as equity partners.
Yeah.
So you're not changing paper at all.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Newton's crazy. Not that Wellesley's not, but
yeah, Wellesley's crazy market. So, but so that's kind of been that's been our business model. It works for us, and so like one of the things we're doing now is so this project that we're working on right now, because it's you're starting to get to the tip of the pyramid, right? When you're in that mid-3 range. So
I think you're at the top of the market in Newton.
Oh yeah, at that market. Yeah, I mean, there's, as there's houses for $4 and $5 million.
There's the exceptions,
but we're up there, right? So
especially in the spec market.
Oh yeah, 3.5 spec is like
top.
Because at that stage, if someone's going to spend that amount of money on their home, they're going to want to have a lot to say. Yeah, they want to go custom.
So do you? Sorry, I'm gonna cut you off.
Yeah.
Do you not open it up to pre-sale?
We don't, we just like, for us, we don't put it on the market and let people into the house until it's 100% done, completely staged, just because we've felt, some people that walk in when it's boarded and plastered and they just, well, the first couple we did, we were like, oh, that'd be great if they could come in and walk and buy it. And, but we just didn't feel like, they look at it and they just didn't get what we were all about. Like
the creative part of it, they couldn't see it.
Yeah, how we're like at that point, how do they see if it's just boarded and plastered? Like, how do they know if you're any different or any better than any other spec builder out there? So we literally don't let people step into the home until it's 100% complete and staged. And that's
key, because you've paid for the land and cash. You're only paying interest on what you've used for construction costs at that point. So you're minimizing what your risk is for money you put out.
Exactly.
So you're not basically holding it longer than you have to.
Correct.
So what's your average construction day, like time frame?
It's usually about 8 months.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
For 5,500?
Yeah, 5,500 to 6,000. Yeah, most of our houses have been in that like 6,000 range. This one that we're working on now is going to be like 7,700. So
that's good time, man.
Yeah.
For not being like involved with it day to day.
Yeah.
You got maybe 8. I'm like
probably
10.
why it goes faster, to be honest.
So I should get out of the.
Seriously, I feel like you probably increase your profit margin and aren't hindering schedule if you're not there micromanaging or changing things or making them redo things. Not that you're not doing that, but I feel like to give your subs that liberty to not have you there and not meet with them in the mornings and everything else, that it probably actually does go faster.
I totally feel like Nick right now.
You're 100%. I think like on this, like the framing, we're almost done with the framing on this project, and I think we've literally only changed 2 or 3 things. Like there was a closet door that was a little bit more offset, and we thought it should have been more centered, so we did that. And then we've got this.
So you just walked it one afternoon? Like, take me through that. Or did you see it in the drawings and you kind of flagged it, or how was the organic process?
Great point. So have looked at the drawings thousands of times. So as many times as I look at that Boston design guide, I'm home at night after the kids go to bed, and I'm just looking through the plans again and again. What have I missed? Am I going to have some weird window where the trim is like a 1/4 inch of my casing is cut? Like I'm looking for all that weird stuff now to avoid it. Right. And this was just, I walked in and the closet's framed, and I'm like, why isn't the door centered on this closet? And maybe at my time might have been like, okay, because the closet's, I don't know, I'm going off the top of my head, it's 8 feet wide, right? It's a walk-in. And maybe at the time I was thinking like it'll give more room for like the closet space on the left side, and the door can like open up and it won't bang into like the closets, into the the
stuff.
Yeah. And then, but once you're in the space, you're like, oh, this should be centered. So that was one. And then we were like, 2 seconds away from, pouring the sonotubes for the deck. And we did this big, huge, massive, 296 inch, quad slider. And like one of the supporting posts for the deck is like right in the middle of your view. Yeah, the line of sight. And you're like, oh my God, what? Like, how did we not pick this up? But now it's there. So thankfully we didn't pour the sonotube. So now it's like, all right, well, like, hey, what's this? Calling the engineer, calling my National Lumber guy.
You still like sonotubes?
Well, we use the Bear Claw, or sometimes we use the precast stuff.
I've been doing precast.
We've used all 3.
Yeah.
Like we've used the, what is it, Bear Paw or whatever, like the orange thing that, so there's the sonotubes, there's the precast. I just feel like the
precast, I'm in for it for $200.
Yeah.
I can drop them in when I dig it. And for me to put a sonotube in, backfill it, and then it rains, and I lose that tube, I will lose my goddamn marbles. If I ever dug and then I got to come back to it. So like we just ordered 3 of them for our Maurice custom.
The last job we did precast, so.
Because Means and Shea, both can get it to you in 24 hours.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, and it's got the big foot at the bottom.
Yep.
Tapers, I get the 12 inch.
Yep.
And it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like my big move like 3 years ago. It was an epiphany. I was like, why am I pouring this anymore?
I love them.
I can just buy it. I keep the knuckle so you can chain it in my truck.
Yep.
And because that's like $100, I feel like.
Yeah.
If you lose it, you got to keep paying for it.
I won't pour them. I'll rip it out and I'll do the precast now.
No, I just feel like you lose one sonotube and you're like, why do I do this? There's other ways around it. And I've done the calcs where you price out like a pre-poured.
Yeah.
Versus like digging it, putting in the sonotube and maybe losing it, or honestly just me waking up at night going, even if I tarped it or put plywood over it, I'm still gonna lose it.
Yeah.
Like, in that whole conscious effort that I put into that sonotube isn't worth it. I feel like that's what my world's evolved into, is what am I consciously thinking about when I'm not on site, when I'm at home, trying to focus on my family, and I'm like, what is burning my head?
Yeah.
So I try and eliminate those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably like that's something that I just say to my site guy, like, hey, here's the plan. I need these.
So he's
footings
accountable
poured.
for it.
Yeah, and so whether he puts in sonotubes or the precast, like I don't get too wrapped around.
I might change to your model.
I don't get too wrapped around.
I might try and be a money guy from now on.
Yeah. So.
Imagine that.
But yeah, and like just other small things in this like spec market is just like like anytime like the utility poles like on our side of the street. Underground utilities, man. Like we will never.
I do it across the street. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll never drape that wire. If we can do it, if the utility pole's on our side of the street and we can run that underground, man, like it's
a no-brainer.
Yeah,
put the meters inside if you're allowed to.
It's exactly
that way you don't see it. Even though now they're making you do shutoffs, they're making you do an emergency shutoff for all services. So even if you had your meter inside the house,
yeah,
because people have the ability to put solar on, the fire department can't shut that off. Imagine that there's a fire and the whole solar and the panels energized because of the solar. So you can kill off the power to the house, but yet solar is still pulling in, so it could be energized still.
Yeah.
So they're making you do a kill switch outside.
Wow.
Because we had to put our meter in at Maurice where it's underneath the deck, and I'm like, can we put that to the side? So I am giving up a little bit. So John, my guy's running more stuff and making more decisions, and I'm getting more comfortable with letting stuff go.
Yeah.
For the good and bad. Well, no, like it's just like, where does utilities go? Like I used to be that micromanager, be like, hey, electric's gonna come in here. I don't want to see it. Like then I got to the job and electric was in a different spot, and I was like, so, what are you thinking there? I'm like I went over it with him when I was like, so Nick's away this week. That's why he's not in the podcast. And last week I was away. We went over like, hey, I want the electrical service to be on the let's go between the two window wells on the right side of the property. Come off the pole, straight run. I get there and I'm like, God, it looks like it's untouched. And there's a pile of sand there, and I'm like, where? So like I start looking around. There's 2 telephone poles on our property. They come off of that one. They went to the left of the front door, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna get upset. There's got to be a reason that someone put it here, not just because it was easier, shorter run, all the obvious stuff. And John's like, no, it's this will work out better, blah blah. And I'm like, this is me putting out a really long leash, where it's like, so I'm gonna put a deck over this, no access panel on the deck because I don't want to see it. Like, explain to me how this whole thing's thought all the way through. And I'm like, you know what? Knock your socks off. Because right now, for me to run new PVC is super cheap, like $1,200. But to me, run the service, put it in, have everything installed, you're probably in the $8,000 range. So I'm like, all right, this is me giving, Tyler, you asked. This is me giving a little bit of room to feel it out and to deal with it. And to me, I think you'd go bonkers even with the situation if it was.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't know what that means.
Oh, to give up a little?
Just giving that much of a leash.
Well, dude, here's the thing. Like, I switched to Build a Trend. We have evidence of me saying different things about Build a Trend. And it's because I'm not the company. And there's nothing about that. It's the company of vintage builders that needs to evolve. So if that means bringing in a software that's going to make it easier for my guys to become PMs, I got to suck it up. And I was on Build a Trend for 3.5 hours today, dumping in Excel spreadsheets and all that. But it's crazy. So yeah, you give up a little bit and you kind of navigate certain things. And like John's now taking more meetings with clients. They're kind of not low level meetings, because I don't want to say it that way, but it's more of like, hey, how do you figure out how you want to do this? That way, I feel like guys, John's gonna listen to this, but I feel like guys have less. Like, I like to have sites very, very clean. Mm-hmm. But if I'm handling all the site meetings and he's handling all the site cleanliness, there's no reaction to it being not tidy. Mm-hmm. Meaning, I feel proud about it being clean. Everything's identified. Everything's marked out with Sharpies. But if you're the guy accountable for that, you never have someone go, why does it look like crap? How would you ever know? Or your boss just says it and it's just a thing. So having someone else have that meeting where, hey, your meeting's tomorrow at 8:50, is that how you want the house to look when they get there? Yep. Now they're literally feeling it going, you're right, it looks like trash. They have a different sense of, like, what do I want to say? responsibility for how it looks, because it's a responsibility and it's a representation of them in their meeting.
Yep.
When it was me holding the meeting and them running the site, it was different. And I know it sounds bonkers on the podcast, but it did change the game. Meaning, yeah, you know what, I'll have a cleaner come in, or I'll have labor ready come in and kind of organize all those things instead of him doing it. So
the site cleanliness thing. It's big thing for us. I mean, so for example, we're big on our subs, right? It's just like you can tell when you're there. When you have multiple subs in the house at the same time, it's like oh, this guy will clean it up. Oh, this guy will clean it up. Oh, then
I'll push it into his pile.
then nobody cleans it up, right? So we're very clear on that, very upfront with all.
Do you
of
have
them.
cameras up?
No, but I mean, it's
God. You have so much faith.
Well, part of it is that like the Sunday therapy, right? Like the Sunday therapy is like I'm up super early.
And you got 3 kids?
Yeah. Get there early, like put on my headphones and just like do some cleaning on a Sunday morning, just for like a couple hours. It's like, I like it. It's mindless. It's just like, hey man, I just got to clean, right? Just got to clean.
And your permanent house is probably done, right?
It's done, yeah. So it was.
What am I doing wrong?
So my the permanent house was a split level. If you looked at, and I hate splits, but the only reason why we bought it was because it was a corner lot. I love corner lots. It said the elevation of the house was a little bit higher. If you looked at it today, you would never be able to guess that it was that it was a split. We renovated it. We started it in November. We finished it in April. We moved out for 6 months with 3 kids into a 2-bedroom apartment. It was brutal, man. My 6-month-old at the time was sleeping in a closet, and then my 3 and 4-year-old at the time were sleeping in.
It builds character.
It does, man. It does, and it was crazy because they had like an open air parking lot. It was like a big 240 unit apartment building. And it was newer, but it had an open air parking garage, 2-level parking garage, and a couple of different times, like some water must have snuck into the sprinkler system, and it was like a really cold winter, and they froze, and the alarms went off. So like we're packing up a 6-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-year-old, and like driving to my parents' house, who live a couple of miles away from this apartment complex, and my wife's like, when is this house going to be done? I get that every day. Oh, it was a tough one, man. But that utility story. So same thing happened to us. Like, all right, I know that they're coming to bring in the water and the sewer. Here's the site plan, and I show up, and they brought the water service in on the other side, and I'm like, why'd you do that? I'm like, I gave you the site plan. That's like what you needed to do. And they're like, oh, we were gonna kill the roots of that tree or whatever, so we came in on this side. I'm like, yeah, but that's the bedroom downstairs. It had an egress window in it, and because nanny or whoever, an au pair or parents. It's like now I have to put this like access panel in the spare bedroom.
You compromise the room.
Yeah, you compromise the room, and it's like, oh, dude, if I was there, I would have been like, I don't care, dude, kill that tree. You're going on that side.
You know what's funny is how you approach that. Like I've always, like when you get out of the car or you pull up to the job site and you see it differently, I'm always like, how do I approach this where I'm not aggressive? Like where it's like, hey, walk me through this. Like, I know it's here. You got to tell me why it's here. And just kind of really go at it where I know I can be aggressive if I come out of the car. Like, I've had people tell me I chew my gum aggressive. And I'm like, I didn't realize that. Like, so I'm like trying to really bring it way back. And it's like, dude, walk me through it. I trust you. And it's really tough, especially like John, my guy, we're talking about like, how do you text somebody? Because texting doesn't have that, the sarcasm or you can throw as many emojis as you want into it, but it's like, how do you get to the point, but in a roundabout way where someone's not going to take offense to it?
Yeah.
Because so much more offense can be taken, and it's really how you describe it.
Yeah.
And it's like when you say, why do you do that? It's like you immediately put someone on the defensive.
Oh, yeah.
My goal whenever I hit a site is, how do you get an answer without making someone defensive? Mm-hmm. Which is really tough to do, especially with maybe my energy or, the way I approach something, because I try to be direct because I don't have a lot of time, but it is tough to do.
Yeah.
But it is on the top of that's probably on the top of my list of things that I have to accomplish every day is, how do I make everyone comfortable?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different personalities.
Yep. Yep.
Which is super tough.
Yeah, I think I've been able to keep it under control most of the time. I think
you're not there.
I can only
I can
think,
imagine the phone calls.
It's already cooled down by the time I get
Right,
there.
by the time he drives there.
I can think of like one instance where I probably like snapped, and it was and this was actually for one of the customs, and the client had picked a 3-inch hexagon tile for the shower and a 5-inch for the rest of the bathroom floor, and my tile guy flip-flopped it. He did the 5-inch inside the shower.
My secret is I write it on the windows. On the glass window that's there, I write the layout, Sharpie it out, and identify it. Same with paint colors. Like everything's on. It's basically a dry eraser board in every room.
But that's what I was mad at. I was mad at myself. So when I flipped out, like I explained, so now my tile guy's looking at me like, holy shit. I'm like, dude, it's my fault, man. Like this is on me. Like if I was here, this wouldn't have happened.
I definitely take that approach a lot. Is that I put it on me first and go, hey, my bad, I didn't tell you this.
Yeah.
What do you, and it really definitely changes the tone of people talk to you after that.
Yeah.
Where it puts them more in the driver's seat than you.
Yeah.
But hold on, you just said custom.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, so we've done, like I said, we've done about 3 customs now. So
that's you meeting with them, the client, on the weekends, or
yeah.
Or do you bring a designer in to kind of help alleviate some of those decisions?
So one of them had a designer involved, and then the other one, I worked, directly with we worked directly with the homeowner. Yeah, so it's it's nights, it's weekends.
But I mean, that's kind of how it is, regardless of somebody was. If I was the GC,
Yeah, because they have jobs too.
it's really
Right?
it's like Fridays at like 8:30 when they don't have meetings, when they work from home,
Yep.
or it is the weekend.
Yeah.
My kids really have to understand that, like, hey, why do you have to go to work? It's like because a lot of my clients work all week.
Yeah.
And I got to take the 10 o'clock. Like this past weekend, we had hockey at 8:30. I had an 11:30 meeting, and then we had a 3 o'clock game. And it's like Hunter's like, why do I have to go? I'm like, it's the only time they have available.
Yeah.
So make eye contact, shake people's hands. Don't be an idiot.
We're up front about that. Like they know going in that it's like, hey, we only take. That's kind of the give and take though, right? So at the same time, it's like, yeah, we do have full-time jobs, but at the same time, like I don't have as many projects as you have going on right now. And so like the people that we work with, they also realize that too, right? So I might only have, like I said, we do like 3 homes a year. So, they understand that in a way that almost gives them, some sort of like a comfort level knowing I don't have 15 going on, right? So yeah, it's nights and weekends and like, hey, I got to meet you at, tile shop at, at this time of the day or whatnot. So
it's funny. I think I know where your numbers come from, where you're able to put in hydro. And I think it's because you're not hiring a GC to run it.
correct.
So it's having another $150,000
Yep.
that you can either put in or just use as profit, or you're not holding it as holding costs.
Mm-hmm.
So you're able to pour it right into the build.
Yeah, and I'm not paying, like you had mentioned, like, a labor ready or whatever to come in and clean the site. Like, I have to be that much harder on my subs to maintain a clean site.
Yeah.
And then in addition, like I said, I mean, I enjoy it. Like that Sunday, I'll get there at like 6 a.m. I can't wait, and I just get the headphones on and, clean up the site. So like,
What time do you go to bed?
so I do try to go to bed pretty early. I try to get in bed by like 9:30, 10, because I'm at the gym pretty early, because if I don't work out in the morning.
I'm like the reverse of you.
Yeah.
Like I'll sleep until 9.
Yeah, but there's no way you're sleeping until 9 now. No way, dude.
Some days.
I doubt that.
Yeah.
Weekdays?
Yeah. Sometimes.
9?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is to everybody. I'll get up at 7 and I won't get out of bed till 8:30. I will send texts to everybody. I'll send texts and I will work from my bed for a good hour.
You still doing CrossFit or?
No, I did that for like a heartbeat. I did it for like one class.
Yeah.
Now I play hockey. I was supposed to play hockey tonight, but pushed it off.
Yeah.
So I'll play Wednesday nights and that's it. But no, I'm totally out of shape.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that my wife does the Reach the Beach.
Okay.
That we'll run together.
Yeah.
So I'll get after it.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah. Cool.
It's I definitely neglect myself in this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's more work, and then the kids, because this is the worst time of year. I was telling Nick this the other day, is that like hockey season's coming to an end. There's tryouts, so like there's a whole bunch of hockey and all this crap that goes on,
Mm-hmm.
and then lacrosse overlaps, and it's like an absolute. I dread this time of the year, even though the days get longer. I have zero time to get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like. Tyler, you've brought up to my attention that like I try and maximize every second, and I don't think I was always like that. I think I have to do that now in order to have a little bit of free time to have it with Hunter or with Cam, where I can make baseball at like 6 o'clock on Thursday, where I can be with him and work on his swing. I don't know how it got to that point, but I've been trying to track that down ever since the comment you made to me.
I think it's just getting busier and busier, and your kids get older, and there's more demands on you. And I think that you adapt and figure out how to make it happen, because it's not getting less busy. Life's not less busy. You need more money. You have to work more, and the days aren't necessarily getting longer. So I think that you kind of make things fit where you can and sacrifice some things. And I feel like that's just part of life. I mean, I look back pre-kids and used to think that I had no time and that I was super efficient. And now I look back on and it's like I had nothing but time.
Right.
I had so much time. But when you're in it, it's just your reality, and that's your life, and you just make it work.
Yeah, but it does make me realize that maybe I should slow down. You know? Like, I couldn't remember, like, Benny and I were talking about the other day. It's like, maybe our guys go from job to job and they actually listen to the radio. And I took away from the conversation, like, why would we ever think that that's not okay to listen to the radio? Like, that they're not making phone calls, they're not checking their phone, or not sending a text at a red light, where, like, they're not being efficient. This is a conversation Benny and I had, where we're like, they probably just listen to the radio when they drive from job to job. And I was just like, what are we doing? Like, are we really trying to make that kind of a maniac? But
yeah,
and I'm trying to, now I try, like, seriously, that comment you made to me a couple of months ago, whatever it was, where it's like, you may have just described the situation. And I was like, man, I don't want to be that. Like, I want to be somewhat casual, but get stuff done. But you're right. Everywhere I go, it's writing things down and trying not to miss a beat where I have this idea, I should call this guy to make this easier. I flip out if I don't write it down, and then I get to the job site to do it, and I'm like, what was that amazing idea I had to make this more streamlined? Mm-hmm. And I lose my marbles.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I feel like it's just making it work. You're making everything work. You're trying to make it work with your family. You're trying to make it work with business, with customers. And it's almost, you're in it and you don't see what's going on until somebody sheds light on it, or you slow down enough to look and say, hey, what the heck am I doing? I think that that's what grounds me to a certain extent, where I know I'm working too much or I'm not giving enough time, when I think, what am I missing out on? Am I going to get this time back? Am I going to be able to, my kids are young once. If it weren't for them, I don't think that I'd have really, I don't think I'd pay that much attention to it. I would just work and drive myself into the ground. But there are times now where I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's hang up the tool belt and go home, because there's more important things than getting this done.
True. I mean, I feel like so this summer my kids go away and I totally ramp up.
Yeah.
Like, I am
sure.
nonstop with the business for that month that they're away. And it does, like, and then we'll be home, like my wife and I, but we don't have to do it ourselves. I've said this before, like, we'll be sitting in front of the TV with the remote and go, what do you want to watch? Like, we usually don't have control over the remote. So we're like, what do we do with it? Or do you want to go to dinner? Where? And so we don't know what to do with this free time because we've been so programmed to go.
Yeah, it's I feel like my wife and I will make plans to do something when the kids aren't around, and then when it actually comes time, we'll just be like, hey, you want to just stay home?
Right.
And not
So
go
true.
out or do anything. So much nicer.
Yeah, and I think, as the kids get older, when they were younger, you could, procrastinate a little bit here and there. But once they get older, there's just so many commitments that you have to be so efficient, during the week, because like that time you had to like make it up at night or whatever. Like, you just can't. There's practices to go to, there's school, there's homework, there's so many other different things going on.
That's so true.
You have to be more dialed in than ever.
Yeah, you used to be able to make it up from like 6 to 8 at night.
Yeah.
And now I'm like at hockey or driving to hockey or something like that. And those days are gone. So then you feel like I think it's the work ethic you had in the beginning when you were younger that then hinders you later on, because you feel like you're not picking up enough speed. And you're not carrying that ball of momentum enough that you're like, it's a stress. I feel like it's a stress that I haven't been able to control, that I've been neglecting. Like it builds up and I'm like, why am I letting this build up? Yeah. Like this weekend I went to bed on Sunday and I was like, I can actually sleep this weekend. Like I was like, I can sleep because I've identified all my projects. I'm not telling them, hey, this is what we want to hear. And like we've had a few projects that haven't got out of control, but straight up I haven't been controlling because it's not in my wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. I've got designers that I walk in. I went away last week, came in, walked into the living room, the foyer, and the whole thing's wallpapered, and they're drilling out new recess locations. And I was like, don't be defensive. Don't flip out. Can someone tell me why we changed the recess in that kind of tone? And they're like, well, the designer wants to move this. And we're talking inches. And I'm like, but the wallpaper's up. Like, this room's done, bro. Like, they're like, yeah, this is what we got to do. I'm like, so literally what I mean lose control is that I don't have control over the design. And here's the kicker is that all these tweaks make it amazing. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you argue with that?
Yeah.
So for the last month, I felt like a punching bag where it's like, oh, we're going to change this. We're going to change that. And it's like, all right, how do I, and it's like they have an installation date of whatever. Let's say it's next week. But yet they're still ordering tile for the master floor because it came in wrong the week before it's supposed to be cleaned. Mm-hmm. So how do you control that? Like I've really felt helpless and I've just been kind of rolling with it and trying to put people in the right spot. And it was really tough, but having to come to Jesus going, hey, we're not going to have this install date. I'm like 100% and this is why. And I sent an email within like 30 seconds of like everything I had teed up, but I didn't know how to break it to all the parties involved. And it was really tough. That weighed on me really, really heavily. So to get it all out there, I was like, dude, everyone knows exactly where we stand. Like across the board in every job. I'm like, I don't need CBD PM. I don't need all the other vitamins that I take for sleeping now, which I never did before. Mm-hmm. And it felt really good to have everything dialed in, but it's been a while since we started Vintage that I've been able to do that.
You know, I know you've had conversations before about, you know, working with designers and stuff, and I haven't worked with designers nearly as frequently as all of you have, but the projects that I have, it's been kind of a relief, right? Because like
it should be.
Building these spec homes that we've built, there's literally hundreds of decisions that, you know, my brothers and I have to work through on a daily basis, right? You know, whether it's tile, trim package, you know, appliance package, you know, herringbone, paint colors, whatever it may be, landscape design. You know, at the end of the day with a designer, once they've got the designer involved, it's like, okay, I don't have to think about that, and you're going to order it, and it's going to be here when I tell you it needs to be here. Oh, and by the way, if it's not here when I tell you to be here and this project's delayed, it's on you and not me. Like, I'm like, okay, this is, you know, it's been pretty good.
It's like Benny and I both have this problem is that we still give too much where designers still aren't doing their job and they're like, can you draw this out? And it's like, wait a minute. Didn't we hire you guys to draw it out? Mm-hmm. Why are we still, like, it's weird. Like we still find ourselves compelled to insert ourselves in the situation. And it's really, Ben and I talk about it almost every other day, is how do we talked about it last week and now he's doing it right now. It's like, you know what? They fired the designer on one of the jobs he's on so he can do the design. And he's like, wait a minute, I'm managing the project. How do I now get paid for that? And now he has to go back to the developer and be like, hey, if they want me to do lighting, paint colors, all this stuff, then you're not getting this stuff done. We've really tried to move it more towards something that you can, credit and debit, meaning, hey, if you want me to do these 5 things, then we're not going to finish this stuff on time. Because that's the only way people can see it, meaning, hey, I can't do that. If you say I can't do that, people automatically go into this, what do you mean you can't do it? I'm paying you to do stuff. Well, no, you're paying me to do these 10 things, not these 5 things that take the same amount of time and effort. So how do we kind of compensate for these 2 things and be upfront about it? Yep. Otherwise, you're getting free design work, and we're having to compensate for the management. We have to pour more management into it, which means Benny doesn't see his 2 kids because he's doing more for the build where we don't get paid anymore. I'm not saying it's about money. It's about getting paid for your effort. And it's really tough for us to do that, where you do all this and it's still not getting done right, even though you have all these investments of, designers, cabinet people, all that stuff. And you're like, it's still wrong. How do you sit back and go, not me? Yeah. Like, I can't do it when it's our job.
Well, yeah, because you had they were a helping hand before that is now not there. It's like, well, okay, before, your designer was the one that's going to tell me where that waterworks washstand specs were that I could then in turn provide my plumber. Now I have to go do that research and I have to be the one accountable to make sure that that's roughed in correctly and all that stuff, and it's more work for you and you should absolutely be compensated for that.
My mind, like, flashes with like, hey, what do you want to do with this? Can you draw it out? Well, it's going to be somewhat around this area. So I'm like, so you want me to draw it out? Mm-hmm. Like, what's the outcome here? Like, what's the option? Because if I point at that and go, it's not going to work that way. Why? I then have to draw it out to show you why it doesn't work. And my mind races and all the things I have to deal with right now that I'm like, and the problem I have is I chalk it up to the project. Mm-hmm. Where if it was a business coach, they would say get paid for it.
I mean, they're still getting paid for it. That's the frustrating
Yeah, they
part.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the head real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was actually going to do the same thing.
Yeah. Bathroom break.
Arone brothers. Why'd you?
I want to know how is it working? So I've worked with multiple brothers. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. I've worked with my father, and I feel like it's never worked out with any of them. And I actually had my younger brother working with me full time now, and it's a difficult situation to try and navigate how you deal with them and kind of give responsibility, not too much, not too little. I've always wanted somebody to try and take stake in it, because I feel like once somebody has some sort of ownership, it gives them motivation to kind of step up and do more than just the 8 to 5, 8 to 6. But I've always found it difficult to actually make that happen with family.
Mm-hmm. I think, well, in our situation, right? So we're all, we're partners in the business, right? So we don't feel like any one of us works for, the other. So I think that, that's certainly, one thing, right? We have this common goal in mind, and we have a product that we're all aiming to put out there that we all feel is representative of who we are as individuals. We definitely, we certainly, growing up as kids, we especially my older brother and I mean, dude, we battled, man. I mean, we would show up at like a high school party, and like the main event that night was my brother and I fighting each other. Like that was, so we got past that stage, and then became, really, 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 really tight. And, even now, like our arguments now, I think we know how to argue, right? Because, we grew up in this small house, and you couldn't afford to hold a grudge or be pissed off for more than like 30 seconds because you had nowhere else in the house to go, So I think knowing how to argue is also, is part of what allows us to, to be in business together. And again, our arguments are never about, money or work ethic or, who's pulling whose weight or pride in work. Like we all want, the same goal. Like I said, typically our arguments are stupid little things like, should we diamond plate the mechanic room or not? Is anybody gonna notice that? So I think that, that's been the biggest difference. And then in terms of like our projects, like we literally at the beginning of a project assign tasks. It's like we literally break it down the entire course of the project. It's like, all right, I'm responsible for the site work, the foundation, we both obviously collaborate on the frame. I deal with, the slab guy. He deals with siding, exterior trim. I deal with the blue board and the plaster, the plumber, the HVAC. He deals with the electrician. I deal with the cabinet guy. He deals with, with the painter. I deal with, the HERS rater. And so we break it down so that we each have like ownership of our specific tasks, and then we trust each other with those tasks. There's certain things like the window schedule. He'll be like, dude, can you double check this window schedule before we commit to a $60,000 window order? But by doing that, we try to eliminate as many possible disagreements as we can. And like I said, usually it's about all right, is anybody going to notice this, or is this going to make a difference? Like when we try to sell the house, if somebody really wants to buy this piece of property, is this the one thing that's gonna hold them up? So that's how we've been able to make it work.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue for me has always been that there's no stake in it. It's my business, mm-hmm. And so I feel like at the end of the day, it's me always footing the bill. It's me always picking up the slack. It's me going above and beyond, which it should be. But everyone, everyone that says that they want, and it's even with employees, everyone says that they want one thing and they come in saying that this is their goal and this is where they want to be. And I found very few people are able to kind of keep the pace that I work. And I think it gets overwhelming to them. And at some point, they're just like, okay, it just ends up being me picking up the slack for everyone. And it gets to a point where it's like, all right, it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
Which I think, if you were able to kind of delegate tasks and this is your role and this is your responsibility for the entire job, and I think that you can help out, and if somebody's needs a little bit of extra help, that you can fill in for them. But I think it's tough when you feel like you're putting in more effort than everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's how it's always going to be. Like, I think when I was in college and I was realizing that I was going to be like the foreman on the crew, like that every day was going to be the hardest task of the day. Meaning out of 6 guys on the crew, I was always going to get the hardest task. And the sooner I could get my head wrapped around that, not be like, hey, I don't want it today. Like, it was going to always be, if I hated heights, guess what? Today I'm going to be on the highest point. I feel like just recognizing that early on and trying to maximize what you can get out of the other people, not so much that they're going to be responsible for it. I feel like that's what I wrap my head around early enough.
Well, I think part of it is understanding, what motivates them, right? And Johnny, I don't know if you remember this a while ago. I had suggested a book to you called Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
And it's worth the investment, right? You buy the book, along comes with this Strengths Finder like assessment, and there's literally like 35 of them, right? So for me, like 1 out of 35, like I rank 34th on empathy. My wife is like, you are a cold-hearted SOB,
yeah.
Right? But then they have strengths like, like Nick. I bet Nick would be like woo. So like woo is like you want everybody to kind of like, get along and do all that stuff. And I don't know him that well. I just listen to the podcast, right? And then there's another like strength is called like achiever, right? So like every day you need to like look back at the day and be like, all right, look at what I accomplished today, Another one is like activator, like you love, coming up with new creative ideas, right?
That might be Nick.
Another one is responsibility, right? You're like, oh God, like this popped into my head today, and even though I don't agree with it or love it, like I am going to see this through to the end, come hell or high water. That's like the responsibility theme, right? And so part of that is like, Tyler, maybe so then they do these things called like team blend, where you learn the people that you're like compatible with and the people that you're not compatible with. So like your strengths might be dramatically different, like from that of like your brothers, and you learn,
how to compensate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I think
it's funny you bring that up, because we're gonna have Mike Albert on, like this business coach that I used years ago, and I reached out to him the other day and I was like, hey, we need to put you on the books for doing a podcast. And we had done kind of that evaluation. You take this test and it basically shows what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I forget what it is. Like it gives you fall into 3 different categories on how you should be managed or how you should manage. And I asked him if he can have all 3 of us take that test, Nick and Tyler and myself, and then have him evaluate us on the podcast and be like, hey, you know what? We'll take them all, on our own. And then he can jump on the podcast and be like, he never met us, and let him kind of run through all of our kind of strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah,
that would be sweet.
I think it would be good, because it's not us dictating the podcast. It's really what the tests say.
Oh, for sure.
I think it'd be fun, because we used to take that.
Definitely set that up.
I emailed them. I'm just waiting to hear back the date, but because we took them all with my old company. It was, how do you manage certain people? I need to be less about this and more about that, which is not how I would manage that person typically. But it was definitely something that was, I don't know if it was a huge asset, but it was something to be aware of, in the back of my head, meaning this person doesn't compute the same way I do. We're on different frequencies, so take a different approach.
Well, like a lot of young people, they want to be, developed today, right? And I think there's a number of different ways that you can develop people, right? You can develop them by potentially throwing them in a situation that they're not quite yet prepared for, right? And you're really going to stretch them, and
That's kind of my MO.
and they're gonna, they're gonna learn. They're gonna, wow, like I was challenged in a way I never thought, and I dug in, and I stepped up to this challenge, right? Versus you have other people that they're like, okay, well, no, I need some more parameters than this. Like you haven't given me enough guidance. Like what's the goal?
But it's like, it's funny. Like I was never brought up that way.
Yeah.
Like even in the business, like any of the crews I worked on, it was never like, hey, this is what you're gonna do today. Yeah. It was like, this is what you're getting thrown into, and I look at it like more like like the Navy SEALs. Like I wish I could put a bell on the job where you can just give up. Like I'm gonna run you through everything, and if you want to do it and you want to hammer at it, if not, just ring the bell and give up. And that's kind of what I've done through every single employee I've ever had. Because if they don't have that mentality, I need to know. Yeah. Like we've talked about it before. We were at the Cape Cod lumber thing, and we talked about not having like an employee kind of days off kind of whole process, and be like, take days off if you want them, and then whatever. And I remember Steve Basic raised his hand. He's like, what happens if they abuse that? And I didn't have the right answer at the point in time, but Nick and I were talking about it afterwards, and we're like, if they abuse it, now they're not the employee for you. Mm-hmm. But if they don't, then everything works the way it does. I never, and I think we've all talked about it, never implement a process for it to fail. Mm-hmm. We implement it for it to be successful, and if it fails, it's not because of the process, it's because of the individual involved in the process. Mm-hmm. So now I know I need to recalibrate how that person fits into this company, or if they do or don't. Mm-hmm. I want to have zero turnover. Benny and I both said that from day one, is have zero turnover for a company, but also have the parameters where we're not losing money on an employee because we want to keep them and have no turnover. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. Like everything we do is more of, this is how I want it if I was an employee, and if you abuse that, then we know we need to move on. Not, oh, that failed, let's change the process. Not going to happen. But you don't have that. You have a day job.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
I'm kind of jealous of that a little bit.
But I mean, I
you can just kind of punch out.
But I do manage a number of people today, and I think that's a big part of it. Finding the right talent is not always easy, right? You got to dig deep. You got to find out what motivates people. You got to challenge people in different ways. And again, some people, they really need they need the guardrails the entire way.
The bumpers.
Yeah. And some people, they crave that, that freedom to be able to make decisions on their own.
Your kids, when they bowl, do you put the bumpers up?
You know what? I don't think I've taken my kids bowling yet.
What?
They're 6, 5, and 2. I think that if they, it's the days of the candle pin.
Yeah.
Are there still any around?
Yeah.
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 Where?
Ryan Family Amusement, Malden, and Medfield. You just called me out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a big bowler, but yeah.
Well, they used to be the one on Route 2 in Cambridge, and then the one.
Yeah, they took it down.
Yeah. And then Wallachs and Waltham.
But if you take them bowling, okay, everyone do this. Take them bowling and don't do bumpers, and watch the emotional strain that your kid goes through on throwing gutter after gutter.
Yeah.
That's like having an employee. Straight up. Like that right there is that they can do it.
Yeah.
It's possible. Yeah. It's obvious, but they'll still throw a gutter ball. And like my son will get so frustrated, my oldest, and then he gets it. It's like hallelujah. So I feel like that's a lot like, trying to get employees to do what you want. It's like you push them.
And in this business, it's expensive when people make mistakes, right? And especially as like a small business owner, you're not this like large corporation that's like can afford to have people make
built into your costs.
Yeah, like you might lose this client or something like that. In this business, if somebody makes a big mistake and cabinets were ordered wrong or the wrong tile was installed, and you got to rip it up, reorder, and you're on the hook for all that.
Or you assume something like, hey, that doesn't look like it's silty material, and you just build the foundation on it. Like I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So it's harder to allow people to fail in this line of work. So I would honestly say that it's almost harder to to develop people in this line of business than in other lines of business because mistakes can be costly. Very costly. Absolutely, yeah, there's no question about it.
That's so true.
Just get office jobs.
Yeah, right.
thinking about it.
No, I said that last week when I brought Hunter to my job site. I drove home on Thursday, and we went from the White Mountains of North Conway to Carlisle to Cohasset to Dover, and then we barely made lunch. And I turned to him, I go, and just think, people go to a cubicle, and he's like, no way. Like, he loved hitting all the sites and walking them all, and this is a day in the life of Dad. Like, it was funny to hear his reaction. It was like, nope. I'm like, all right, maybe we got a builder on our hands.
Yeah.
Like, it was fun to hear his perspective. It's honestly the fact that he's up to my shoulder and height wise, it's like scary. Then I dropped him off at a big dance this past weekend.
Yeah.
I picked him up.
How old is he?
12, turning 13. My youngest just turned 9 yesterday.
It's crazy.
He's the crazy one. You gotta watch out for that kid.
Yeah, it's like mine. My older one's normal. My younger one's a maniac.
Hunter follows the rules
wrong.
even though
I don't know
no
what's
one
wrong
tells
with
him
her.
to. Hunter follows the rules even though no one tells him to.
Yeah.
Cam knows what the rules are and goes, I'll pass.
That's my exact situation.
Right?
Older daughter's just sweet and caring and kind and well behaved. And the younger one's just like, anything you want me to do, go screw yourself. I'm doing what I want to. And she knows it too.
My 7-year-old
bad.
just got her ears pierced yesterday. Yep. So dealing with that, but I mean, Todd, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, what, if I'm your brother, what is his incentive to work, as hard as you do?
I think that there's opportunity for growth within my small company because I can only handle and scale so much. And my business model is built for me to make money and support one full-time, maybe 2 employees.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I feel like anyone who wanted to come work for me would have an ability to make as much money as they wanted, depending on what they brought to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And he has like my business, my customer base, my tools at his disposal to do that. I just think that a lot of people hear that initially and it seems they're all for it and they want to do it. And then you get on the job and you see what it entails, and it's difficult and it's dirty and it's hard and it's long hours and it's stressful. And it's like, well, you start looking at what you made somewhere else and low pressure and you're not dealing with customers and everything else. And I think it's tough. But as far as incentive goes, anyone who works for me, it's like, this is what you'll start at. Whatever you want to make, like, let's use the company to make as much money as you want. If you want to grow, if you don't want to work with your hands, find a way to be managing projects on your own that you're not working with your hands. That's not necessarily what I want to do, but you have my full blessing to do that if you want to do that. And I think that you can make whatever you want of working for me. I think that a lot of people get in and see what it takes, and it's kind of disheartening for them to see, to get to that level, the amount of effort that you have to put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I also think this is relentless. There's a lot of jobs you can go to day in and day out where you can take Tuesday through Friday off. You're still at work, you're still in your cubicle, you're still responding to a few emails, but you're literally browsing the internet, checking Facebook, stuff like that.
Yeah.
This business is relentless, meaning you can go, and at the end of the week or a month of going straight out, you can still be behind.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And so even the brother who's working for me now, he worked for 2 companies before, not in construction. He was a mechanic, and they have the built-in coffee breaks, and they have like a longer lunch break, and there's downtime, and you get done doing your task and you clean up and you kind of reset and start over. And if it's late in the day, you're not going to start something new. But working on my jobs, like, I'm not like that. So if you're not keeping that pace, then not that I have an issue with it, but you probably feel out of place. But if it's not like if I'm planning to leave at 5:30 and it's 4:15, that I'm not going to start something new because I won't finish it. No, I'm going to start something new and get as much done as I can. And like you said, John, it is nonstop. There's not a ton of downtime. You're going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And I think people don't realize that that's how it is in the business.
Even beyond physical work. Like I could be at lunch having, a salad. My mind is literally spinning over whatever it is that's on my mind for that job. So I'll write it down, or I'll shoot a text off, or I'll be prompted to think of 4 people I need to get in contact with that's going to help me next week.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of our employees that Friday rolls around 2:00, they kind of throttle down, where a business owner kind of keeps and hits the pedal as hard as they can come Friday 2:00, because that's going to get you through next week's momentum. But if you let it kind of steadily kind of fizzle out come Friday, Monday there's not going to be anybody on any sites because you didn't ping them because someone else did. We keep saying that across the board, is that a lot of subs, they have, maybe 6 to 10, maybe 15 clients, other builders. If you're not pinging them, someone else will, and then they become number 1 on the list when you're not.
I think a big difference between owning a business in our industry and employees, I think that there's just a different sense of urgency with what we do. And it's not expected that an employee should have that. But I think that when you have stake in that business, or you have stake in that company, where it's you and your brothers and you all have an equal stake in that, there's motivators and there's a push that you have, and there's always a sense of urgency, because that's how much is going in your pocket. That's how much extra time you have to spend. That's how much extra money you have to spend. And I think when there's a paycheck, more often than not, there's not really that same drive and that same sense of urgency.
Do either of you offer, bonus structures to like your employees based on either, bottom line targets or, top line revenue targets, and make that correlation as to, hey, here's how your additional efforts can help drive top line, can help drive bottom line? Do either of you do anything like that in your business now?
I don't. I do try and, whether it's job bonuses, give out extra pay, even if it's stupid stuff where it's like you had a certain amount of hours and I'll round them up for the week because I know that we busted our butts. Stuff like that, where I try and take care of people as much as possible. But it's not like structured, or it's not a performance-based bonus. I think it all depends on the employee as well, and kind of what drives people. I had an employee where basically money was not the motivator for that person. So it's like, I could pay you more, give you more, and that wouldn't be the driving force as to what made them tick.
Yep.
Yeah, and I also don't want that to be the incentive. I think it's like when we go hard for like the closeout of a job, I don't expect you to show up, endless hours, the hours I'm going to work, but I also am not going to complain if you want to take 3 Fridays off in a row prior to that closeout. But I've had businesses where I've been the director of operations, and the owner's like, let's give our guys an incentive, so every change order they write, they'll get 5% of that change order. And I've been against it.
Yeah.
That's not the mentality we want to have with the jobs or the clients. It's more putting the effort in, and then you're getting rewarded just on basically the outcome of the project. But also, like, we'll have 401ks, we'll give our guys trucks, we'll make allowances, and kind of be at the tip of, have the pulse of what's going on. Where, like, my guy John, I knew that he needed to get out of that van life. It reminded him of his own business. He didn't say any of this stuff to me. I could be dead wrong, but like I could see him in him that I was at that same point 14 years ago, that I was reminded of, whatever flaws I had when I was younger, when I had my own business, and I needed to move on. So I needed to be that for that person. So, get myself a used truck, get him into the Toyota Tacoma, lighten his load on what his bills are, try and help out that way. And then, put in a 401k, give bonuses for Christmas and other times, and just, take care of people. But I don't want it to be that because if you, in my eyes, it could be dead wrong. that like this economy can change. And if I have it based on how performance goes for how profitable the job is, let's say you screw up a bunch. Am I then going to make him accountable as well for the screw ups? When things don't go well? No. It's more of, hey, the overall process and environment needs to be great. And that's what I think we offer above and beyond most places. And I could be wrong again, because I know there's probably people out there going, no, we have a great environment, but we give them incentives. And I get that. It's just, it could be so much worse. And I've been in those situations that have sucked. So I think having a great environment where it's open, airy, meaning you can come and go, whatever you want to do, and you can strike me later, that's a bad philosophy. But if he's got to bounce out, I was at businesses where I would freak out to have to go to like my kids' parent teacher conference at 1 o'clock. I wouldn't take lunch at noon to make sure I wouldn't be taking time away from the clock. But I was still panicked that if I got a text or whatever that, I'm going to get my head chopped off for that. That's not an environment that I want. Even if I got 5-10% of the company. Yeah. That wouldn't have made it any different, but not having an environment that I wanted to work in. Yeah. That I was safe to be able to go to my kids' thing, not have to get it approved, or I'm going to bounce out for an hour and I'll bounce back. I'd probably work 18 hours more than I should in the next 3 days regardless. And I shouldn't have to prove that.
Yeah. So it's funny. I feel like even if somebody were to come in on the weekend or spend extra hours on a job and I were to compensate them for that financially, I feel like I would more so that compensation would be based on their attitude and their decision to come help, more so than the extra hours that they put in.
Correct. The mentality.
If that makes sense.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I think getting down to like the individual job level might be a little bit, too micro, but I think, that, macro, if you're sharing the goals and I don't know if you do or you don't, but, for TRG Home Concepts or for Vintage Builders, hey gang, like this is our target top line number for the year, right? So it's not, you're not necessarily getting down to, change orders and those sorts of things, or, cause even like, speed of job concerns me, right? Hey, if you finish this a week ahead of schedule, because then, are you starting to incorporate bad practices? So I don't even like incentives around, finishing a job early. I think it's more about like, hey, as an organization, these are our top line goals. These are our bottom line goals. If we hit on our top line goals, your bonus is X. If we hit on our bottom line goals, your bonus is Y.
What's funny is it's a great point, and I feel like I want to have profit sharing in our company. Phantom ownership, where they don't have. I've been instructed by lawyers that it's like you don't have to have a say or whatever, but you can still have a percentage. I think the hardest thing about this business is how do you find somebody and vet them where you don't just give it to them the first day. It's like, how do they earn that kind of spot? Yeah. And I think that's where we're at, is that we've had John's, I think, just about a year right at that point. And it's like, now that's a time where we've given him a truck. We've given health insurance. We've done a lot over 2 years. Yeah. But that our next step is definitely to have profit sharing, where, they will see that. Where I do 100% agree with you, where it's more the mentality, though, to speak to Tyler, is that they have a percentage, meaning every decision they make, like you said, how do they become accountable? Where it's like, if I need them to do that, like every decision they make, like John having a client meeting, now he goes into account, oh, God, that site looks like crap for my meeting. That's him looking like crap. Yeah. It's a reflection of him. So it's the same thing as if he becomes a profit share in the company, every decision he makes means it comes out of his bottom line. Just it may not be as deep of a cut as to me that it is to him, but it's still a cut. But it's how long do you give them till they've earned that situation with the company? Not everyone deserves it.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe you put certain like thresholds in place, like, hey, listen, you don't qualify for the 401k, match until you're at least 2 years with the company, right? Or you don't qualify for a company vehicle until you're at least 1 or 2 years with the company. Now, granted, to recruit, somebody really good that you really want to hire, you might need to offer that, right day one. But I think you put these different gates in place that says, okay, after year 1, we cover this. After year 2, we cover, cell phone. Or, after year 3, you qualify for the company 401k match. Once you've been with the company for 5 years, we start sharing top and bottom line, revenue numbers with you, and then you can qualify for a potential, bonus. And by the way, these are the things that impact that,
our branding, our site cleanliness. Those are all things that when a client walks in, that can be the difference between us landing that particular client and not. So I think that, that those are some of the things that can impact it, but it's, because, to hear, when you ask about, things to get, employees or family members to buy in and have that same sense of urgency that you do, I think it's, it's definitely, it's not easy, but I think that, the fact that we have, equity ownership in the business, that's kind of the driver there.
And the fact that everyone works equally for it.
Yeah. Because
I think Marvin said it best. If you don't want a piece of it, give up everything.
Yeah.
It's not like you're getting a piece.
I think that's the demise of, and I think that's the demise of a lot of small businesses or people who have partners in a business. It's when they feel as though somebody's putting in more effort or reaping more rewards. And I think that can really create bad attitudes and bring a business down pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's no question about
There's no
that.
way around it.
Yeah. Thankfully, our arguments are focused on whether or not to do two cobblestone aprons or one.
Well, in the back of my mind, it's like because you've always had successful projects. Like if it went the other direction, I would be very interested to hear how those shake out.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a builder kind of mentor that that I call quite often. And he always reminds me, he's like, everyone always goes into a project saying, hey, how are we going to divvy up the profits?
Yeah.
Nobody goes into a project talking about how they might divvy up the losses.
True. It's a good point. I think I look at it both ways every time.
Yeah.
So you've DM'd me a bunch.
Yeah.
What questions do you have for us?
Oh my God, dude. I have like tons, man. I mean, I think like one of the questions I have for you is probably mostly around like, building, kind of processes in general. I feel like some of these houses that we're building right now, they're so tight, right? Mm-hmm. We've got, hey, your ERV's not pulling enough, so you got to set the bathroom fans on timers, and we're doing all that stuff. We're bringing the trim in, we're letting it acclimate. We're priming the walls beforehand. We're pre-priming the trim. And there's still some times where we still get that expansion and contraction. It's just like, dude, we have done like everything, man. Like, why are we still seeing this in some of our projects? Stuff like that. More from a process standpoint is where some of my questions are. No question about it.
Yeah, I mean, what are you using for temp heat?
I bought a different version of the one you have, like the DeWalt one. So I bought one like a rigid one or something like that.
Electric.
It's electric. Yep. So we've brought that one in. We got the fans circulating it. I mean, we really, really try to not bring anything into the home until it's it's acclimated and we've got the HVAC system up and running. But sometimes that's not always possible. Like last year, had the NSTAR, the National Grid strike or whatever, and it's like, but you got to keep moving.
I mean, we're still being affected by that, but we'll throw in like 300-gallon propane tanks and then run the system.
Yeah.
So we're still doing that today, but literally we'll never let the temperature get below 62 degrees in the house.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're asking me my process, that's really how we do it. Is that I think there was one time one of our builds since we started that we didn't have the heater wired, and I was panicking because I'm like and it basically not so much panic, but I wouldn't compensate and put the trim in the building until that was in.
Yep.
You get me? Because it just you can be chasing that forever.
Oh yeah.
Like when I say forever, it's like years. Like we've done very well, knock on wood, that we've been able to acclimate houses well enough that when the trim goes in, there's no joints that open up. I feel like I'm closer to Tyler when it comes to trim because the guys make it super tight, but they're going to do great craftsmanship regardless. It's our job to make sure that the house is as tight as it needs to be. We haven't trapped moisture in, and it comes down to flooring. Like a lot of guys will say, oh, well, flooring, it buckles a little bit. You can blame the floor guy. You can blame the supplier, but reality is how did you evacuate all the moisture yourself? And if I've done all that, then I'm good. If I haven't, then you know what? I'm going to be chasing the buckle and floor for 5 years, or that client could call me and recognize it.
Yep.
So it is tough, but I feel like we've come down to a point where we've eliminated all of the, 7-day acclimation, concepts and, hey, this is here for this long, or like doing the pH balance on the plaster to make sure you're using the right primer so it doesn't bubble. And so many, we've had a couple different painters now, and I can't tell you how many times a painter will go to me, no, just trust me. And I have to have this conversation with them, go, it's not that I don't trust you. If you don't prove to me that I can trust you, I can't move forward. And it's a simple test. Like the new painter we have, he's like, I bought it on Amazon. I bought a pH, because he watches us on social media. He's like, I bought a pH balance tester. We tested it. We can use this primer. And then like, you don't have to worry about stuff bleeding through. And there's little things that it takes a day. It takes a day ahead of being aware of it to order that tester. And then you're not chasing something, and you can be confident with how much thousands of dollars you put into the project going forward. That's the hardest part.
Yep.
So like we spend $1,000 on heaters where it's no propane, no kerosene, none of that stuff. So I'm not introducing that, where then I have a splotch in a wall where the heater was just blowing off all these chemicals. It's all those things that kind of come into play. What are you using for insulation?
So we used closed cell in the basements,
Yeah.
and then we use open cell everywhere for the rest of the envelope. Yep.
Yeah. So I've been doing closed cell everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole thing. So even if it's 2x6 walls, I'll still do 3 inches of foam on the walls.
Okay.
So it gives me a little bit of room to run wires that we screw up.
Yep.
But it's more of, I don't want to have that vapor permeable.
Yep.
I just like having close cell foam the whole thing. And it does cost me more money.
Oh yeah.
But it's again, I know that system works and if Nick was here, he would challenge that fact that, there's probably a different way of going about it with, Sega tape and barriers and having cellulose inside of it. I don't disagree with that. But for right now, for the amount of hands and effort I can put into management, then I have to go with this kind of process.
Got it.
Because I think Nick's process, he has his own guys that can do a lot of this work.
Yeah.
That I don't have that luxury.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me to pay to have someone else do that, it would push me out of a spec beyond that limit. You know what I'm saying? Like you guys talked, Tyler, a couple weeks ago with Spence, there's that point of no return. That, this is my easiest way to get the maximum value I can, where the house is protected, where it's not like it's built for minimum code. It's built for 100-year, climate change.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I have put a ton of effort into that because I used to be a finish guy. So you do all that work and then you get called and go, hey, this guy's filling it with caulking, and it's like, what, dude? That miter was tight as can be when I left.
Yeah.
What did I do wrong? And then having that mentality, it's like framing for a finish. It's like building for the finish, where if it was a cabinet that pulled apart because you installed the cabinets or you had them sitting in the house when it was 4 degrees, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really having that, and we do trick a lot of people because it goes at such a pace, not 8 months, but 10.
Yep.
And because we're hitting all those we're not going ahead of it, where we're not compromising those little tiny moments where, like one of our investors said for the Cliff Estate build, he goes, it seems like nothing's happening there. I'm like, dude, I couldn't evacuate the moisture.
Yeah.
I threw in a huge dehumidifier, and I didn't want to go at a huge rate that I would then compromise the plastic cure. So we had the heaters going, we had that going, and it got super cold, but yet it was still 55% humidity in the house.
Yep.
And I just couldn't. I knew my Cucan stuff would come in a week, so I wasn't in a crazy. I ordered all my doors, but I had to have them hold the doors for an extra week before they dropped them.
Yep.
Because I just knew that either the jam or the masonite doors are pretty stable, but I just didn't want to chance it. And I would take a week delay then, than to wait 6 months and then at the finish stage when they're trying to sell it.
The problem is, once you have those issues, they don't go away.
You chase it
ever.
Yeah.
It's seasonal over and over. There's nothing that you can do to fix it at that point.
You'll spend $1,200 every Thanksgiving caulking everything before Christmas.
And then the next year it'll come right back.
Exactly.
Unless you adjust the moisture content of the home.
Yeah, and then you could spend $1,600 to $2,800 on a humidifier to make it sure that it always stays at that point, doesn't dry out. It's been harder for us in New England, and everyone can say whatever. I'm sure the guys in Canada can say the same thing, is that with these 11-degree weeks or below, it just sucks the moisture out of our house. So we've gone to a point where we'll be in a house. We had to do it at the big house, farmhouse build, We were in there and we got the moisture content down to like the 30s. Perfect. And then it got super cold.
Yep.
It went down to like 18. So then all your floors start drying out. And I'm like, I had to then bring humidifiers into the house to make sure it got back up to the 44.
Yeah.
But it's like, is having, you have a pulse on what you have to produce every week. But then there's a whole different lane that you have to be in on making sure that everything stays where it needs to be for the environment of that house. Because it is closed cell, you have controlled it, but as soon as windows and doors open all the time, the cold air just sucks out any moisture that was in the house.
Yep.
So it's how do we then compromise that? And that's why like our clients will see these gauges everywhere. Like they're $11 gauges, we have it on Amazon, and you put them everywhere. That way I can walk through the house and casually see where are we. Like, is this side of the house, is someone leaving the windows open? I remember we did the farmhouse build, and the designers have us paint every window a different color, like in every room. So at one point we're in the middle of winter, and I walk in, we have Geo going, and I'm like, why is this happening? Like, how do I control this? Yeah. Like when you have all the windows open, how am I controlling the rest of this house and how it affects it? So we had to be smart about it because you have, I don't know, $60,000 floors in that place. I can't, it's my responsibility until I turn the house over.
Yeah.
Like no one gets that. It's like, oh no, it's just, I've heard builders say, no, it is what it is. It's like, dude, no, you got to take responsibility. And maybe I could go through life easier by going, I could deflect it. I take too much of it on. But yeah, it is tough when I panic. I'm like, I gotta get a humidifier. And then John, my guy's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this thing needs to run until it hits 40% every day. So refill it until it happens. Put it on plywood. Put whatever. It's that way. If someone splashes water, it's not getting on the floor. It's like, people might call me crazy, but that's how you keep that accuracy of finish throughout the years to come.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to put it in writing. Like to say, hey, follow these things.
Yeah.
But I think having these humidity gauges and knowing that you need to keep it above 30 almost all the time is key. And then who knows how people live in the house. I've had people live in a house who leave their gas fireplaces on all the time. That room's moisture content is like 12%.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, okay, this is what you've done to this environment. We can make it better by putting in a humidifier. But you're literally just burning moisture. It's almost like, hey, can you put a water feature in the house? Like to compensate for that fireplace.
I was just a bathroom that we did. The customers complaining that there was caulk that cracked. And I go in and immediately know that they're not running their vent fan when they're showering. Yeah. And it's like to the extent that the screws on their light fixture housing is rusty.
Yeah.
And we just finished the bathroom less than 6 months.
The walls are stained from not either that or they're running it. And the second
even the globes on the fixtures have brown spots. And it's like, I'll come do this once and fix this for you. But if you're not going to take care of this, I'm not going to come out here every year. You got the floor heat on when it doesn't need to be on. And then you're not running your vent fan. And it's like, it's just one extreme to the other.
Yeah. It's all. I went through a house this past week to do a reno, and the room was like it's flat on both sides, and then it's got like a little gable point over the vanity with like a little window, and they have the fan on the lower part, and I'm just sitting there like taking it all in. I'm like the heat rises, so it's all sitting up in that vaulted spot, and then all that moisture sits up there, and no one really wipes down those ceilings. So what happens is all the moisture gets caught up in it, and then it beads and it pulls down all the dust.
Yeah.
So then you have all these drops at the intersection between the flat part and the vault. That's all dirt. And they're like, it's all dirty. I'm like, it's because you don't run your vents. Like right now we usually put one at two different points. Like we'll put the fan tech on a master outside the shower, and then if it is vaulted, we'll put it up high. So you are evacuating that moisture, but it's being, instead of just letting the electrician, that's why I worry about like the situation you have. My electrician is just going to run it. And then if he puts it in the wrong spot, then I got to go, hey, can you move this? And he's going to bill me for moving that. So that's like my mind races on like how do you have to Sharpie it everywhere, location wise? But you just trust your guys right now?
Yeah, I mean, well, on something like that, it depends. Like I have so many like different watchouts that I'm documenting and having these conversations with the guys, and I have enough consistency now that they know some of the things that I've learned that the watchouts. I think probably the thing I struggle with a little bit is you'd mentioned or maybe it was Tyler had mentioned the client that it just has the fireplace running constantly, right? How do you tell somebody that paid for $3.5 million for a house to be built that their fireplace is running too frequently? It's like it's tough, but it's fact, right?
Do we have them? Do you say, hey, do you want to install a blower? Like to basically, because I've had clients. I was in a house the other day that we almost finished in my last company, and they have like a concrete surround. Mm-hmm. I just happened to I'm like, do you guys ever turn this off? They're like, no. I leaned over and like just casually put my hand on the concrete. Mm-hmm. Dude, if that was horizontal, you could fry an egg on it. Oh, and I was like, dude,
what hot this is.
And I remember I looked at Benny, like I just casually did it, and I looked at Benny. I'm like, gave him a nod, like he can read me. He walked over and put his hand on it. It wasn't like you could put your hand on it and like slowly pull it away. It was like, oh boy, like that, like in my head. Did they build that with steel studs or was that wood? You know what I'm saying? Like that's where my head's at. But that would be what keeps me up.
Yeah.
If we didn't do that the right way.
Yeah.
Like we had a meeting today about how people are putting TVs too close to fireplaces without having a mantle above it that's deflecting heat. Yeah. That the specs will say 18 inches, but yet our AV guy said that TVs are melting at 18 inches.
Wow.
You got to go 25. Wow. And I'm just like, that's the meeting we're having right now.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
write that one down.
Yeah. It's crazy, but everyone doesn't want to look up. Yeah. So, but you hired Matt Sargent.
Yeah, we hired him for. We're working with him on two different jobs. I mean, so I think one of the things we had talked about was we seem to dive into like some of these historic projects that, nobody else wants to get involved in or take the time to get involved in because it involves like going for a variance because of the FAR, because of the slope of the land, and the FAR in the basement's going to count. So you can't build as big of a square foot house as you want to. So
FAR?
Yeah, a floor area ratio.
Yeah.
Yep.
FAR, that was like.
Sorry. FAR.
Slang.
Yeah. Floor area ratio. So, and going for, or existing non-conforming. So you bought a 2-family in a single-family zone, but you want to knock it down and put up, 2 condos. You got to go for special permits, and
the beauty with that is that you're not paying interest on the land because you're paying cash for it.
Correct.
So you're actually able to do that. From my point of view, that's what would prevent us from doing it.
Yeah, and so again, to Tyler's point around sense of urgency, but we still do look at it as like, okay, we have money tied up in this project, right? So maybe not right now, but last year the S&P 500 was up 30%.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah, opportunity cost, right? Cost of capital. So we do look at things like that. But so my long-winded point around Matt is that, the architect that we were working with, like my brother and I always felt like we were constantly the ones coming to the table with ideas. And we were just like mentally exhausted. And we're like, all right, man, like, I follow, Johnny and these guys on IG and I've seen some of Matt's work and, let's, and I love the fact that he still has a 617 number.
Yeah, isn't it awesome?
Riot. It's a riot. And I said, I'm just exhausted of always having to be the one that brings some of the ideas to the table. It would be nice to just work with somebody that is bringing the ideas to us. And so that's how we connected with Matt. And so the 2 projects that we have on the table right now, because of how big the project is that we're working on right now, we just threw some lipstick on these 2 projects and we're renting them right now. So, so we're renting them, we're getting the rental income. We signed short-term leases, 12-month leases. And, one of them was historic, deemed it historic. So they hit us with a 12 or 18 month demo delay. So, so we have time to kind of work with Matt and plan. So that's what we're doing on 2 of them actually with Matt.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's kind of that's the goal there. But
I might need to stop over for those.
Yeah. Come check them out. Yeah. They're rented right now. Someone's living there. So
I'll wait till you start work.
Yeah. Wait until we knock them down. Yeah. So,
So that's how we connected with Matt, and he's been great. Initially we had, some concerns around, all right, well, how's it going to work with, working with somebody that's in Richmond, Virginia, right? But it's been pretty seamless. We've connected him with, some rough around the edge, survey guys that we work with that know the local codes, but it's been super helpful, and his designs are going to be great, and have kind of limited some of the creative, capital that we feel like we're running out of. So
yeah, and it streamlines the process a bit.
Oh yeah,
so that way you can see it a little clearer, and I think not so much you, but also your subs. Mm-hmm. If your subs are the ones that are going to be installing a lot of the details, mm-hmm. having them have a lot of gray area mm-hmm. makes it very difficult to what's in your mind gets out there. Yeah. And if you're not going to be around, like I had the luxury of being around.
Yeah.
But I have found that as I delegate more stuff to my guys, mm-hmm. that it's going to be harder to kind of vet out those things. Where I walked up today and I was like, you know what? Those corner boards could be 1x12. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what the drawings say 1x8? I'm like, but they could be 1x12. Like it could have been.
Yeah.
And we're real close, but it's having that little feel of what we do. And I know if Nick was here, he'd say, how do you get it to a point where it's more streamlined and more of a process oriented thing? And it's not that you're taking away the creativity. It's just how can you pre-plan a lot of this stuff into place.
So you actually brought up something that I never really thought about as to how it incorporates into what we do. But I think that because everything has to be approved by historic, and once it's approved, we can't change it unless we go back
to them.
We're so diligent in our planning around, the corner boards and the corbels and the water table and the window detail and the amount of stuff that they ask for. I mean, even as in relation to like the muttons on the door and the window, it's like they want to see every single detail. And the thought of having to go back to them if we decide to change something is like, oh, dude, that could take 2 months. Yeah. So we're so thorough in our pre-planning of walking into a project that, I feel like that's another thing that has made us, so efficient, because we're like, all right, man, once we submit this and it gets approved by historic, it's going to be painful to go back.
Hit the highway and start going.
That's it. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So no other questions for us?
Oh my God, man. Yeah. I mean, I could stay here all night, but I'd love to know, Tyler, when what do you think has shied you away from doing customs? I mean, because there's no question that you'd be, phenomenal about it, man. And if Nick was here, I actually caught up on the last podcast, and I heard he did put in an offer, but I'd love to see him,
Totally.
I'd love to see you do more specs too, because you're just going to increase the square foot price and help me. If you're putting out a better product out there, it's only going to benefit me. So yeah, I mean, that would be my question for you, Tyler. Would love to see you do a, let's hook this dude up with an investor, man, and let's get him building
get him a lot, man. Right?
Dude,
I mean, my brain would explode.
No. What are you talking about? Let's get this dude up to like Summit, New Jersey or something, or Chatham, and building.
Like the biggest issue I have, I don't enjoy managing people as much as managing my work. Like managing my work, it's very systematic, and I know what I'm going to get out of it. And I think that the uncertainty and like depending on a ton of people mm-hmm. is tough for me. I think I'd have to obviously learn to give up a ton more control, which is difficult for me. And I don't really even know what that transition looks like, just because I've been doing things a certain way for so long, and I can hit deadlines that I promise customers. That it's just the way that my business has been structured mm-hmm. for so long, that I don't know what that change looks like, if it'll ever happen. I don't know if it's something from a personality standpoint that I would be fine with doing. Mm-hmm. So I don't think, I mean, there's an experience side of it that I don't have the experience doing that. I'm fairly confident that I could handle whatever I needed to on the building and the management end of things. I just think that my personality isn't necessarily conducive to putting everything in control or putting everything in everyone else's hands, and then just being the person to kind of steer them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, now I know you still do a lot on your projects, but you're subbing out, electrical, right? Or are you doing the electrical? You're subbing out
we
the
sub
plumbing.
out electrical, plumbing,
Yeah.
HVAC, like floor finishing,
Yeah.
specialty trades. I don't do exterior work,
Wallpaper.
roofing, siding, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
we're have our hands in almost all interior trades. I'll sub out drywall and stuff like that.
He's
I just
so
don't
close,
feel like
though.
doing.
So
What
close,
do you
man.
say?
You're so close. Like
Yeah.
when you name it all off like that, like if you had to, I don't know what the overwhelming part of it is for you
Yeah.
when you've gotten that many people.
I mean, you could still build a custom home and just say, okay, but I am going to still do the interior finish.
But you know what's crazy is I don't like everyone that's listening will go back to like his custom home. He'd overbuild it to a level that would he ever get his money back?
Yeah.
But I would love to see not something that has parameters already built in from a renovation point where it's like, hey, here's a brand new lot of land.
Yeah.
What would TRG come up with for a style and space configuration?
So, I mean, I also do well with even our project now is a fairly large for us remodel, and it's a 100-year-old house, and we're basically reframing the entire house from the inside. Everything, restructuring every floor, all the walls, all the ceiling. Everything's getting flattened, and then we're repartitioning. Got rid of some walls, and I enjoy the challenges of that. I think that it takes a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of hands-on, and kind of seeing that all come together and making that design come to fruition. It's nice for me, and it's nice for the scale of my business because I can plant myself there and I can take that time and get paid for the amount of time where it doesn't move that fast. If I'm reframing, I'm on day 4 of reframing the interior of maybe a 400 square foot space. But it's like we're literally stringing lines and packing out windows and setting one stud at a time in an existing space where I don't need a ton of manpower to do that. And it's going to be slow whether you had 6 guys there or 2 guys there. So it doesn't really matter. So it works for my business model. I think that obviously I would need a lot more manpower to be building anything larger scale. Which also makes me just thinking about it kind of blow my head off.
I didn't mean to stress you out, man.
No, I already don't sleep, and I already have trouble with, making sure that, like John said, everything's going to happen the way that it needs to. And the other part is the scale of work that I do. It doesn't always make sense for me to pull off and either start something new or subcontract somebody to come in, because then I'm just creating more work for myself, or I need to start something else where it's like I would love to never set tile again, but does it make sense for me to get out of a job for 2-3 weeks to bring a tile guy in and then start something new and then have my hands full on that and then have 2 jobs going where it's open, there's no progress. At that point trying to bounce around and clean up after people, and I'm spinning my wheels and not making any sort of progress.
When you say it, it makes complete sense. But I still want to see you build a house.
No, and I'm sure at some point, I'll get to the point where I can't be doing things like I'm doing anymore, or there'll be some sort of change where I'm ready to take that step. Just right now, I think that I would be complicating my life and complicating my business, financially, probably not making much more money. And at this point in my life, it's for what? It would be a good experience. I think I would enjoy it, but I wouldn't do it to kind of keep up or to stroke my ego or anything else like that. I would have to have a real legitimate reason for wanting to make those changes. And right now, realistically, I don't. I'm still learning. I'm still growing my business. I'm still trying to get into the market of where I want to be and getting the jobs that I want. So I don't think I'm ready for that step.
Got it. Johnny, what do you enjoy more, the customs or the specs?
It's interesting. You brought up a good point earlier that you don't have a boss with the specs, and with the spec, I get to do whatever I want. But there's still days where I did it recently with this like block staircase I'm doing at Suffolk Custom, where I stood there and go, "Why do I do this to myself?"
That thing's pretty sweet.
But it's like it's not necessary at all. Like we could have built a beautiful stair with a skirt and been completely fine with it. And I stood there and I'm like, the client paid for the herringbone upgrade, but like the staircase is just a staircase. It's part of the overall budget of the project. And I'm like, God, do I need to do this? Can I just simplify my life? Like if John was running that job, there's no way. First off, that stair had a different direction. That stair went up on Matt's design, went up, and then dumped you in front of the master bedroom. And I was like, man, do I need that? Would I want to be, all the kids come over and they have to run by the master bedroom every day? I'm like, no, let's just turn that back. So I made that effort happen. And then like the other part was like we changed the powder room on the first floor. So when you walk in, you're going to see the sink and not the toilet. Little things that you just miss on the overall amount of stuff you have to comprehend during the drawing.
No matter how many times you've looked at it, you're like, how did I not see that in the drawing?
And again, I look at it more like, dude, you've been doing this for a while. Like, how'd you not see that first off? It's probably because I had to fix or adjust or talk to Matt about like 5 to 10 other things that were like, should we do this? Or something that was a bigger fish that investors or the line of sight in the project. But it's tough because you get to play with like different things that you'd either have to. I think it does hurt us a bit because we like to have that kind of organic creativity where if you go to an architect, they're not going to want you to bring that to the table. That's why they get paid.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help us in the architect realm. I would love it to be more of a collaboration, but it's twofold. I think we challenge ourselves on the specs, and I think customers challenge us. And they're both beneficial. And I love like the one we're doing in Carlisle, the Patina Farmhouse. That client they don't really want a designer. It's us because of our creativity. But from a business standpoint, is that hindering us in the market where those clients might be, 1 in 100.
Yeah. Where
if it was an architect driven thing, it might be, a much higher percentage for us to land those customs. So I don't know. I mean, they both have their own positive part of it. And I'll take both of them. Like we got a great job out of a spec that we did specs in the beginning because we wanted to be able to show people what you take a piggy bank and I take the same piggy bank and what we pour into it is totally different. Yeah. Same way as you, like doing the hydro, doing all the pellets, doing all these things that are different than everyone else. We want to show that we did it thinking that they wouldn't sell just because that's pessimistic sometimes. And no one ever got to walk through their open houses because they all sold. Yeah. So it's like, now we'll be in the Wellesley Kitchen Tour coming up this coming spring,
that's
which
awesome.
Will give everyone the opportunity to walk through one of our finished houses. Yeah. I'll be there as well. But that was cool. But we never went into it that way. Yeah. And now I don't know if I can get out of it. Yeah. We don't make as much money on the specs as we do with the customs. Yeah. But the brand awareness that we have in the town is huge. Like I get emails every day going, hey, I want to do something in Dover. We bought a house, but I live in Wellesley with my family, and I see your signs everywhere, and I see your product. So it's brand awareness. So, to speak to Nick's thing is that how much do I chalk that up to marketing since I don't have marketing? That is it smart for me to keep doing those? Yeah. Or do I have to find a better deal where now I'm a 50-50 and, my equity's poured into it as management and the design, and then we take 50-50 at the end. So that's been presented to me going forward. So, I mean, it's I think everything, even renovations that we do, they all have their pros and cons, and I think they have challenges that keep me excited about this industry that I won't shy away from.
What about, geography, right? And, I've heard you ask Tyler about this, or Tyler's talked about it in previous podcasts about like how far he's willing to go, because you can stretch yourself pretty thin. Like I remember you did a job in Brewster, Mass, which for those of you listening across the country is what,
like New Jersey,
an hour and a half south of Boston, right down the Cape. I mean, how often were you getting to that job?
So we would basically piggyback it, meaning if Benny was there on a Monday, I would go down on a Wednesday. Yep. And then we had Trevor, the other guy. We'd all kind of hit it. Yep. And that's kind of how we like to manage. I know this is something I've toyed with a lot is, am I doing not the right, but should I be doing like, Craddock and those guys where they have a dedicated PM that just sits on that, where I look at it, maybe this is how I talk to myself about it, is that like, am I telling myself this is why I like this process and not because it's the right process?
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I like having John be a second set of eyes.
Yeah.
Me being like, it's like I suck at proofreading stuff. So if someone else can go through it and proof it as well, I love that kind of perspective where when people go, hey, what's this management feed? It's like, well, everyone in the company buzzes through that job within the next 48 hours.
Yeah.
Because if I'm there in the morning, John will be there in the afternoon, or he'll be there mid-morning, I'll be there in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So everyone's getting a different take where John will text me and go, hey, you sure about this? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Your point of view is way different than mine. But no, we did. It was a struggle, but we took that one on because it was a designer that we really like.
Got it.
So normally we wouldn't, but, to speak a little bit more to that is that when I was younger, I would be in Newton, I'd be down in Duxbury, I'd be in Canton, and my answer to everyone was, I go where the money is. And that's totally changed for me. Now it's more of, I go to where the clients really believe in us and they want us to work with. So right now we have Carlisle, a lot of Wellesley. So I run Metro West, so it'll be Wellesley, I'll do Carlisle, and then we're doing one in Cohasset, where it's, ideally we wouldn't go that far, but that's a client that we've done a lot of work with in pre-con, that that's where they want to be, and it's a good opportunity. Is it ideal? No, but it's gonna be a fun project.
Yeah. And
then Benny does all of Boston, so we are good about that. Meaning most of the time my jobs are, for the last year and a half, they've been 11 minutes from each other. All 6 of them.
Yeah.
And now Carlisle is 32 minutes away, and then the opposite direction, Cohasset's 38 minutes away.
Yeah.
So it's still trying to keep it somewhat tight.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think certain projects like the K project, right? I mean, there's just, you get to certain parts of the project, like when they're boarding and plastering, it's like, all right, it's going to take them 2 weeks, right? It's like, if you've done all the right things beforehand, I mean, how much can you do in that 2 weeks? Like, you don't need to be there every other. You don't.
But ideally, that's when you're having to make sure that everything's ordered.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You could be offsite anyways, having those meetings and going, hey, here's an email of everything I need to have done. Let's John jump on this, Nikki jump on that, I'll jump on this, and then we divide and conquer, so that by the time we fill the garage, by the time plaster's acclimated.
Yeah.
Or we've picked out hardwood stains. You try to get ahead. Like, that's what I think everyone, when I was younger, that was where I'd always kind of like let off the gas, is when, plaster's insulation. Like I got a week and a half of insulation, and then that week's up and you're like, oh geez, what do I need to order?
Yeah.
It's and it was same with, hardwood floors. Like, there's this back when oil, I got 10 days.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, did anyone pick out countertops? Where's the sinks? Do we have finished plumbing? Like, and then you're like in a scramble. I think the biggest thing that I try and avoid is that scramble.
Yeah.
Is having those little benchmarks, like before boards dropped, all the trim, all the hardwood flooring, all the tile, and all the cabinetry is ordered.
Yeah.
Like ordered. It's already being fabricated. So when board gets dropped, that's your point of no return.
Yeah.
That's my check and balance.
Yeah, I mean, I drive by houses now and I scratch my head, and my wife's like, "What do you think's going on there?" I'm like, one of two things: either they have 3 other jobs that they're floating and they don't have enough money to give the window guy a deposit, or they didn't order them in time and now they're just sitting here and they're waiting.
My giveaway with that is if they have a full dumpster, it's a money thing. That's my gimme. I'll be driving by and like, you know what? I wonder what's happening there. And then if they have like a brand new dumpster in the driveway, I'm like, I don't know what. It could be a lot of things. Could be a design change. Could be a client. And then if it's a full dumpster and there's nobody there, I'm like, that's a money thing.
Capital.
All day.
Yeah.
Someone didn't invoice for the right amount of time. Yeah, I drive around and have ridiculous conversations with myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm racing somebody. Like people just don't know what goes through my mind.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. You look at it, other projects on IG that start at the same time as you, or projects around the corner, and you're like, got windows in. Yeah. I'm trimming it out there.
I'm sure I took a lot of heat from my farmhouse build. That was like, this is like 2 years in the making.
Oh, man, that thing is massive.
It's a massive thing, and it's funny. Like I look back at it, and it was one of the first jobs we signed up, and it was like when you go back and like I usually play things out like bigger than they need to be, and like that was brought to me as like, it's a dream house, but it's more of like it's more casual. Like, we're not going to do anything crazy. And now you walk through the house. And I remember the client was in the kitchen the other day, and she's like, I didn't want a showpiece. And she's standing like below a 10-foot wide, like stainless steel polished hood that's like, I don't know how much money. And I'm like, and she's like, yeah, I didn't want, and it's like like they have different microwaves for different areas. Like the fridge is like 8 feet tall, and it's got like the cooler box. And I'm like, I know that's what we all said going into this, that it wouldn't be a showpiece like to that level. Yeah. It would be nice, but like it's evolved, and I'm sure I'm at fault for this, where like you want to have, I try and tell clients that when you're going to design a room, don't design a whole house, design a room so it's a destination, meaning like that powder room reminds you of like New York when you guys were still a couple and you guys found this room that was like super cool. And so like at the farmhouse build, which I won't be able to video it because they're very private, but it's like they have 2 different pantries. One's his pantry, and it reminds him of a bistro. So like it's all shiny cabinetry. The tile goes up. It's gonna have a tin ceiling. It's like that's he walks through that or walks by it, it's gonna bring up a memory. Yeah, that's what makes it super cool. Like and like the screen-in porch is somewhere that they've had. Like the grandparents had a screen-in porch, so they want to eat outside a lot. So like it's all these little memories that we're building into this house. That it's a brand new house, but they're gonna have memories from generations before. So that I took hold of, and like that was kind of the driving point throughout the whole house. And now, and the designer that we have, Cotter & Co., took it to an absolute another level. Wow. Like wallpaper I haven't even taken pictures because I'm like, I don't even know what to start. I don't even know what to post where it's like, this is cool. Like, will you get like we have like the lighting in it. They got the lighting delivered, and it filled 2 bays of a 3-bay garage. Wow. Yeah. All the way to the ceiling.
And so how does that, so 2 things, how does that conversation go with you? I mean, do you have like a client that will say to you, hey, easy on the IG, or do you explain to them like, hey, IG is a big part of like, my marketing and my branding. Are you cool with this? Is that conversation had up front?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, they know us for that. Yeah. So they knew we were going to post on it. Yeah. We had the conversation about it, and they were just like, don't post floor plans. And a lot of people, I mean, with the specs, you can pretty much post whatever you want because you own it. Yeah. But when it comes to a custom, we never say the street address. Mm-hmm. And that client didn't want. You'll see that I never post location. Yeah. So that was a couple of things that they came back to me and was like, hey, can we not do these couple of things? Yeah. And absolutely, well, I respect that. Yeah. Yeah. But it was part of that we signed that project up early, so it wasn't the best percentages for like our fees and all that. So I was like, hey, part of this is that I get to market the crap out of this. Yeah. When the time comes, take photos, and they'll be able to prove everything. But that was kind of the tipping point, because that was like day 2 of not having a job. They were like, "Hey, we met, handshake, and I got a 12,000 square foot house."
So 2 questions. One, like, would you say like, are you still, I don't want to say honeymoon phase, but is your relationship with that client as good as it was day 1 is my first question. And then was that like the jumping point? Like, did you know that you had that project kind of lined up before you decided to leave your other job?
No. So I'm going to answer the second one first. I wish I had more stuff lined up. Okay. We didn't have anything lined up. Mm-hmm. We had maybe hopes and dreams. As Nick and Tyler would tell you, I'd come into this podcast every week and go, I got to shake every tree. Like, because people would say stuff and it wouldn't be 100%. Like even the Brookline build, how about them walnuts? We left. I think I went down to, or we hadn't left. We were just about to leave. I gave my notice, and then we went down to IBS in Florida. And that client hit me up on the way back and said, hey, saw that you left. Love to meet you. Met with her that Sunday when I arrived back, and Ben started on that job that Monday. Wow. They had S&H on that job, and they said it would be a $3 million build. And I was like, give me some of the numbers, just, verbally, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's demo? And they're like, 150 grand. I'm like, we'll be at 52,000 if I had to guess right now. Came in at like 49.9. Wow. And I was like, all right, we can do this. And so we proved that Monday. We got 3 bids. We started demoing like that Wednesday, I think. Like it literally, none of it was planned. It'll make a couple unbelievable chapters in a book. Wow. Where it's like you just kind of come out of the gate and it falls into your lap. And it was like even the big house. It was a past client that said to us, hey, you should connect with this guy because he's building a dream house. You're getting started. You guys might connect. I met with him that weekend, and he was like, yeah, this is kind of stalling out, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can hit it with everything I got. And we did. And we got that one, handshake, budget. And yeah, I mean, that guy's an investor for our Cliff Estate and our Suffolk build.
That's cool.
So yeah, I mean, to say relationships are huge to me.
Yeah.
And also being a man of your word. So like if I like we just said about the Ben and Jerry's, I quoted that in a previous podcast that I had given that quote a year before. Mm-hmm. So I valued that relationship. So I kept my management and my O&P at the same rate it was in the original quote. Mm-hmm. But the second one we're doing, it's for the new time, you know? So it's like little things like that maybe I shouldn't value, but I think that's what's gonna win me the long race. Mm-hmm. But no, that relationship's good with the client, and everyone understands how long it's taken because it's evolved.
Yeah.
Like if we all say what we walked into that project and said, hey, it's going to be pretty easy, low key, numbers are low, and now numbers are still where they need to be, but the quality's through the roof. And it's taken some really good manipulation and massaging of subs and artisans and budget to make it happen. It's they're gonna be like they were saying today, like we can't wait to have the party for the moving party.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank God I'm still part of this. Like like it could go south,
And so what is have they listed their current home or
no? They're gonna actually. That was a meeting we had today because there were a lot of changes in the last 3 weeks that would really prevent them from moving in.
Yeah.
Like we're changing out a fireplace that's in the family room, and that goes all the way through the kitchen master, and it's like we did the floors and everything, so it's like we're gonna change it out, and so yeah, they'll put it on the market for next month, but it'll sell in a heartbeat. They're in a neighborhood that's kind of untouchable mostly.
Wow.
So it won't be a spec either. Like it's just, you drive around and you see someone paint their house, you're like, well, you're out. You're not on my list.
Yeah.
You put a new roof on, not on my list for a spec.
Yeah.
So it's so they'll go up on the market, I think, probably end of the month.
Wow.
Mid-month.
Cool.
I'm drinking too much water, man.
Dude, I'm drinking smart water. It's going to make me smarter with antioxidants.
Smart pack.
Yeah, so thanks for coming in.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Quick, you were like, I don't know if my brother can come. I'm like, yeah, dude. Well, you and I have DM'd so much, I was like, you know what, just swing in.
Yeah. No, I would love to have him. Would love to have him here. He's a character, entertaining to say the least.
We'll have him back
so.
when Nick's here too. So we have the full pod.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. We'd love to come back. Hopefully this is good podcast for all of you.
Good. I mean, they're good.
Yeah.
I stopped thinking about them.
Yeah.
And stopped listening to them.
Did you?
Yeah, is listening to your voice weird? I think it's
everything is weird, man.
Yeah.
Even listen to
I never listen to them.
My wife will be on the couch and I'm like, why are you listening to me when I can hear myself?
Hey, listen, man, I'm not just, I'm not blowing smoke. It's, you guys have, first of all, like, well-spoken, super thoughtful insight, both, technically in terms of, of the builds, but also, from a standpoint of, the thoughtfulness around, the culture, building out your business, the infrastructure of the business, from insurance to, marketing and branding. It's, and the commitment to do it every week, man, it's no joke. It's a big commitment. I don't know if people realize how big of a commitment it is. And so, I think it's incredible. The information and the content that you're putting out is, it's a must listen to. It really is. It's enjoyable. So, I mean, you've done 100 and something of them. And, I think me personally, I've gone all the way back to, some of the earlier ones. And, when I got some windshield time in front of me, you guys are putting out great content. It's great.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Definitely not easy.
No.
You see how many people start podcasts and then end podcasts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no question about it. Yeah. It's like the suggestion box at work, right? It's like, you put it out there and it lasts until you receive some feedback that you don't like. It's like, oh, how come they don't put that suggestion box out there anymore? But you guys have remained consistent. So
we tried. I mean, it is tough having 3 hosts and then throw a guest in the mix and then trying to coordinate it all. It's
I think that's the other thing I've been impressed about is like, the flow is there. It's always there, It's like when's HGTV gonna come calling?
We'll see.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. So cool. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure, man. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming on.
All
It's
right.
almost bedtime, man.
Right? It is bedtime.
I
For
know.
you, yeah.
John and I are going to be up late.
Oh yeah. I'm not that I want you to ask me this question, but one suggestion. I did like the question you used to ask everybody at the end of the podcast.
Oh,
who you crushing on IG?
yeah, dude, do it. What do you got?
I'm not prepared to answer it. I would learn from it.
Teed it up, man.
You know,
Yeah.
I would learn from it. That's why I enjoy it, because like you guys, someone would mention somebody that I'm not following. I'm like, oh, cool. I got to check that out.
So you're not following anybody?
No, I mean, obviously I follow you three, and I enjoy Telich's posts.
Yeah, Telich.
I enjoy his. I like Veranda. I really enjoy her stuff, like that style of, like, what style?
I called her
build
Veranda forever, and like never called her Melissa. Like,
Yeah.
she gave me crap about that. No, she's amazing.
Yeah, so her stuff is pretty cool. That Stone Sorcerer guy is pretty funny. I like following
He's
him.
delivering granite for us tomorrow.
Yeah, Steve Basic.
Steve Basic, yeah.
Yeah, just super informational stuff. The science, fight building club, whatever that one
Building
is.
Science Fight Club.
Yep, I enjoy that one. And then I just follow like workout stuff and like wrestling stuff and
Oh yeah,
that type of
like
stuff.
WWE.
No, like college wrestling. Yeah, Ric Flair.
Flow wrestling.
Yeah, flow wrestling. Yep. Yeah, do you follow that?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool, man. Flow wrestling.
Nice. Yeah, I follow them too.
I keep up with college wrestling.
Yeah, man. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, because you went to Old Dominion, right?
No, I went to Drexel.
Oh, Drexel. I'm sorry. Yeah, they've got a good wrestling program.
Yeah, it's coming around.
Yeah.
They had a really good kid there from PA 2-3 years ago. He just transferred to Iowa.
DeSantos.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was at Drexel.
Yeah, Austin DeSantos.
I don't think that the coaches there could reel him in.
Yeah, savage. Yeah, he's an
Yeah.
animal. So yeah, man, those are the ones. So, but yeah, I wasn't prepared to answer it.
You just teed it up.
But I did like when you asked it, because I'd hear someone new, and I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That's cool. We should
Yeah.
bring that back.
Yeah, I liked it.
We don't have a really
Don't.
set system of this thing.
Yeah,
No,
Just kind of roll with it.
that's
I
it,
feel like
man.
I forgot about that till you just said that.
Yeah. So
Everyone used to say Matthew Chase just nonstop.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone. We have to have him on. I actually have spoken to him quite a bit about it.
He's a hot shit.
He's the man.
He took me around for 2 days in San Fran, and I was like, I couldn't do this if you came to Boston. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to reciprocate this. I wouldn't be able to drive
No,
you
he's
around.
so nice.
He's awesome.
Oh yeah, Wade from WKP.
Yeah.
Follow him. It's cool stuff. Haran building is obviously good, and like I love following like trade like specific one. There's this one like Cascade Heating, and it'll show like his boiler room, his mechanical rooms and stuff like that. And I love like seeing what kind of crazy stuff he's doing around
Behind
like,
the scenes stuff.
Yeah,
Not
like-
all up polished.
Yeah, love that stuff. Love that stuff. So. Like that's kind of one of the areas where we stole the whole diamond plate mechanic room thing from. So yeah.
Give him credit. There you go.
That's it, man. Yeah, Cascade Heating, I think it was. So, yeah. And then my younger brother owns a company called Boston Scally, so you should follow them on IG as well.
Scally Hat? Company?
Scally Caps, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it's my younger brother. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah, check them out, man.
What is it?
Boston Scally.
What's Scally?
It's like a
Scally
Scally cap, like a newsboy cap, like a flat cap.
Straight out of Southie.
Oh.
So, yeah, he's in the Southie parade every year.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the ads have come up my phone.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, they probably have. Yeah, so that's his company.
That's cool.
Yeah, man, pretty cool. So.
We'll get him as a sponsor on this one.
Yeah, do it.
Puff will jump all over that.
That's it, man. I love it.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks
What's
again.
going on?
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, nice meeting you, Tyler.
Yeah, you too.
Take care, man.
Where can you find us, John?
I think you can find us on the.moderncraftsman on IG. Hit us up on
Yeah.
Insta.
What else?
themoderncraftsman.org. Okay?
You can listen to us on any of the usual podcast platforms.
Yeah, iTunes is preferred. Hit us up with a review, comment, or 5-star.
Yeah, and you
easy.
want to keep reposting, right?
Yeah, keep reposting. Modern Craftsman Monday.
Appreciate it.
Hashtag it, and we will repost it. We do have a review. It's 5-star best contractor podcast. This is Standard Check. The guy's never
That's
just.
the name.
That's the name. Yeah. The guys never disappoint. Listen to every podcast to date, some multiple times. Whether you are an established small business with a moderate workforce, someone who manages subs well, or Benny's texting me, stubborn and do every task yourself, you will appreciate this show. Throw that all in with the best in the business guests, and you aren't missing anything in this show. Yeah, I got that right.
Did you write that one?
Nope.
Really?
Follow them on Instagram for daily content. No, I didn't write that. I don't think I've
That's a
even.
good one. I kind of like I like the lower star reviews. I feel like
We were supposed to dig into that one, but we should wait for Nick to get back.
Yeah, I feel like they're way more entertaining.
You're right. I feel like you can feel that way because they're usually targeted in my direction. So I take offense to them somehow. But no, thanks guys for listening. It's always helps when you guys give us reviews or reshare it. It always helps bump us up in the standings for iTunes.
Yeah, and we always appreciate the feedback. I think we've gotten a few emails for people with guest suggestions too. So
A bunch, yeah, which is keep them coming. We're keeping track of them.
Sweet. Thank you.